Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Ichigo got Squad Zero's Zanpakuto Part 6. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Though support and follow the AEthereal Devastation for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Okay, who made him decide to take us through those trees filled with giant leeches? Uzumaki asks as we enter the house, collapsing onto the floor from exhaustion, tossing the rabbit he grabbed to Guy, who is one of only 3 people still filled with energy. Forget the leeches, Uchiha groans, lasting long enough to collapse onto his bed. Who made him divert to get us to run through that area filled with giant man-eating plants that used poisonous spines that they could throw or launch, or something to deliver a paralysis poison, before they used their tendrils to grab you and deliver you to their waiting maws? Let's not forget anything. Remember those giant man-eating wolverines that we ran right into the den of, Kakashi groans. The most youthful way to start our exercises. Lee shouts happily. Everyone but myself, Lee, and Guy have collapsed onto the ground from exhaustion. Apparently they didn't like the run. Too bad for them, it's a standard course for them now, and there's still plenty to add to it in terms of distance. 3 of the Anbu have collapsed on top of each other on the steps, unable to even get through the door, and one of them, Hawk, is wearily and half-heartedly berating the others and telling them to get off of her. They groan wearily in response and fail to lift so much as a finger. The other Anbu have collapsed without even reaching the steps, and Jackal has fallen asleep, snores rising from him. All are battered, bruised, and exhausted. Growls are rising from stomachs, and I decide that I can at least feed them before I torture them further. Perhaps I should also answer their question, just to see what happens. Breakfast is next. Lee, Guy, you get to cook it, I say, and the 2 salute as Guy goes to start the fire, Lee moving to gather up and kill the animals that were caught. Boar managed to catch a crocodile, doing it just to challenge himself, and kept it alive through the entire run, and it is apparently very angry now. Lee gets into a short fight with it, ending with a dead crocodile to add to the meal. The rest settled for grabbing a few men-eating bunny rabbits instead, and I shook my head in disappointment. I'm sure they could have done better than that. But they still get to eat, even if they didn't give us as much variety as I had hoped for in our breakfast. Ah, a most youthful instructor for Lee. I can stop worrying about how he will manage to keep his flames of youth burning strongly and instead simply focus on my own work, Guy says from outside, apparently thinking out loud. By the way, recruits, do you really want to know who and what made me add those little diversion to the course, which may not have added distance but still added difficulty? I ask. Because I'm willing to tell you, I say, and receive weary nods from everyone. One of you earned special attention by cursing me, and I could hardly give one of you special attention without giving it to all of you. You may thank Kakashi for the extra work, I say, and everyone but me, Lee, and Guy, including the sleeping jackal, glared at Kakashi. When I can stand again, I'm going to kill you, Kakashi, Uchiha vows. Not even an Iwanin deserves to be put through that run, and you made it worse, he growls. I'm guessing the target of his vengeance is all shinobi of Iowa, then. Widespread hatred, which confirms my analysis of him as a breeding Avenger Mark III. Some group of people tried to kill his family, failed, and he swore to wipe them from the face of the earth. If it was a single person, he'd be a Mark V. If that single person had succeeded, he'd be a Mark IV. And if that group of people had succeeded, he'd be a Mark II. The brooding Avenger Mark I was erratic, tending to declare revenge quests against people because they breathed too loudly, then trying to follow it up. Dedicated until someone else irritated him, but usually weak, incompetent, and died early due to a revenge plot going wrong. Now happily gone in most places. No focus on that model, only blind hatred. The later models are much more focused, their hate much more intense and reasonable. I approve highly of the Mark III, given what I've seen so far. I'll let you kill me, Kakashi agrees. I deserve it for that, he says, then Yuichiro smiles, bringing her head above my shoulder to look at Kakashi and nodding in confirmation after a few moments. She leaps down and pokes him with a stick a few times, eliciting agonized groans, then her smile turns far too innocent to be anything good. Ichi-chan, can I play with the scarecrow? She asks innocently. I think over it, then smile and nod. Sure, Yuichiro. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Yuichiro is my daughter and my second in command, whose job it is to keep me entertained. Since you all know who I am, I'll be so kind as to tell you the chain of command. It's fairly simple. First, there's me and Izanami. Next, there's Yuichiro. Then you get to the major gods and goddesses. Then the major demons. After that, the various spirits and lesser gods. Then the lesser demons. Then there's the highest level of ninja, SS class and cage. After that, we get to the Jinin. Then the Chiknin. Then the Genin. Then we get to the lot of you, disregarding your ranks, though civilians are directly after you in the chain. After civilians, there's the plants and animals of the world, then the dirt, then fangirls. The lot of you need work to be worth anything and make it a few places higher in that chain, and I'm happy to help you get that work done, I say cheerfully. That's on how long Kakashi lasts. Hawk asks Lion, who is collapsed on top of her. Then Rim says 5 minutes, Lion responds as Yuichiro picks him up. She is far too childlike to understand that humans can break, unlike herself. She'll break him in minutes, then find a new toy. Run for your lives, he tries to shout the last sentence, his face contorted in utter horror as Yuichiro picks up Kakashi. He desperately tries to rise, and fails, his face becoming that of a man facing his death, his mask long since put away so he could focus on the run. Let's go have some fun, Scarecrow-chan, Yuichiro says, and leaps out the door. I think those cute little bunny rabbits still want to play, she mentions. Or maybe we should go play with those giant snakes. Have him back in half an hour, Yuichiro, I say, and receive a chirped affirmative from her as she flickers into I'll put 10 Rim on him without breaking before she has to have him back. He knows he only has to hold out for a little while now, and he's strong enough to manage, I think, I say. I agree, Hawk says. Ichigo and I have 30 minutes in the pool, Lion has 5. Anyone else? Not me, Ikao says. I don't take sucker bets. I am unsure whether to simply accept them and build what can be built with as little deception as possible between us, hopefully revealing my true nature, or whether to try and discourage them. All shinobi in this land fall under the Serate's jurisdiction, I remember, so their souls will pass on to the Serate, and when they die, their chakra becomes, so they'll become shinigami. If we can build something, and they're willing to wait, I suppose I might as well give it a try. Mortals see things in the short view, but the lifespan of a shinobi is so little compared to that of a shinigami that I am more than ready to wait. There's no hurry for me, and in time, they'll be shinigami as well, and that barrier will be removed. There is much time that will pass for them, but it will be only the blink of an eye to me, by my natural perception of the passing of ages. Shinigami change slowly once their basic nature is set, and mine is now firmly in place. It will be centuries before I am noticeably of a different temperament if I change at all. Something can be built between us in the 10 years that is a long time to them, and little time to me, and the lives of Kunoichi tend to be short, so perhaps it will not be long before we are of the same nature, and have more time to see what comes of this. Attraction of power is only able to work on those compatible with me, so I will carry on as things happen. I'm going to assist Guy with the cooking, I say, suiting actions to words as I leave the house, heading towards the fire. Mind getting Lion and Raven off of me first, Ichigo? Hawk asks, and I kneel, grab both, and rise, the two of them rising with me as I step over Hawk, setting them down on the grass a moment later. I hear screams rise in the distance, definitely from Kakashi, and Yuichiro's joyous laughter. When Yuichiro returns with an unbroken but definitely battered Kakashi, she is greeted by a breakfast that has just finished cooking, and a group of people finally regaining enough energy to move. We are going to die if Sensei starts trying to tire Lee out and expecting us to keep up, Uchiha mutters. We have only one option. Ask for extra training to build up our stamina, Uzumaki replies with a grimace. I don't like the idea, but it's the only way to possibly survive, he groans. True. Let's just get this over with, Uchiha says. He approaches me with the expression of a man walking to his execution. Sir, myself and recruit Uzumaki would like to request extra training to build up stamina from you, he says. Granted. We'll begin right after breakfast, trainee, I reply. Who knows, if given a few years with you, I might even make you something that can actually be called a Jumnin without you getting lucky and being given the promotion out of pity, I muse. And will you get me to the point where I can destroy Iowa? Uchiha asks hopefully. That's part of the advanced course, which you'll get to in about a year. Of course, if you do well in the next 3 months, I might fast track you onto the advanced course, and you can start it then, getting strong enough to destroy your enemies with ease. Of course, I still expect you to remember the sins of battle, I say. Sir, yes sir. Uchiha replies. It's all going to be worth it. No matter how much I have to go through, it will be worth it, he says exultantly. Naruto looks at him curiously. Think, Uzumaki. You want to be in charge of Anbu. I want to exterminate every single Iowa shinobi in existence. We survive this training and the advanced course, there is nothing in existence that can stop us from achieving our goals, Uchiha reasons, and Uzumaki starts looking like his birthday came early. If we get as tough as Jumnin without chakra, or even as tough as Cages, and chakra is a combat multiplier, there's no way anyone can stop us from achieving our goals, Uzumaki reveals. Yeah. And add ninjutsu and other tricks in, and there's no one who could stand in the way of our goals, Uchiha explains, a fanatical light in his eyes. We must not fall below Yamamoto-sama's expectations. And imagine the look on Kiba's face when he sees what this training will do to you, Uchiha says, and Uzumaki starts grinning and laughing. Sensei, I believe my new teammates are devoting themselves most thoroughly to causing their flames of youth to become a roaring bonfire. Lee shouts, tears in his eyes, with all of sudden seeming to be on a beach, waves crashing behind Lee, who has one thumb up, is grinning widely, and has a sunset behind him. I can feel the sand below my feet and nod thoughtfully. Indeed they are. Now, I have training uniforms for all of you, I say, bringing over from my room uniforms very similar to Soifan's, sized to each of them with only a minor kidn, and created from fabric a clone appropriated via the use of another kidn. I really have to thank Konoha for creating kidn for so many different situations sometime. Tough in fabric? Uchiha asks, and I nod. They don't restrict our movement, give us a reasonable degree of protection without being conspicuous, and aren't pure black, so they allow us to blend into the shadows fairly well. Full coverage of the body, except the head, and I see a hood goes with it, he says as I lay the uniforms out. Most youthful indeed, Guy approves. What of our training weights? Lee asks, and I grin at that question, 4 kidn clones coming up and tossing weighted vests, ankle weights, and wrist weights on top of the uniforms. All use chakra weights like those of Lee and Guy, which have a special seal placed on each weight. That seal may be modified as necessary to set the weight, and all of these weights are set at 500 on each leg, 200 on each arm, and the vest is another 600, and that's just a start. Traveling packs follow, already loaded with the normal gear they'll be carrying, weighing another 100. They should enjoy the new weight. You get to use chakra to carry these for the next week. After that, I expect you to carry it without using a crutch, I tell them. Most youthful, Lee says, tears of joy in his eyes. I am overjoyed to have such a youthful sensei who burns so strongly with the flames of youth. He says, suddenly hugging me. Yamamoto sensei. Lee, I say warily. Yamamoto sensei. He says again, tears firmly in his eyes. Lee, I say even more warily, and a sunset forms around me, the vibrant colors of the setting sun giving life to the moment. I suppose this illusion is created by these flames of youth. Might as well endure it and any others like it. I will not hesitate in my training, Yamamoto sensei. Lee vows with sudden fervor. Even should this training kill me, I will meet it with joy. I cannot mold chakra for ninjutsu or, he says quietly. I can use chakra only to aid me in jutsu. For this reason, I wish to prove that a shinobi can be great without the use of chakra. I would sooner die than give up my dream of becoming a legend through the use of jutsu alone. All I ask is that you push me as hard as you can. Show no mercy. I will rise to the challenge or die trying, Lee swears. So you are entirely unable to use ninjutsu, or I ask warily, and he nods quietly, releasing me and looking at me with hope in his eyes. You have a deal. I'll show no mercy. But you will be as strong as I can make you when all is done, I swear in return. Your dream is a strong one, a worthy one. I will assist you in it, I decree. So it is spoken, so it is true, so it is done, Izanami says from the door, finally leaving the house. Thank you sensei, Lee says quietly, tears in his eyes. I will blaze brightly with the flames of youth and etch myself into the history of this world. Even if I burn for a short time, I will still rejoice, for I will burn the brightest of them all, he declares, then grabs his uniform. I will change into my new youthful training uniform before I eat, and once I have eaten, I will train twice as hard as any other of your students. He shouts, vanishing into the house. The most amusing student, Ichigo, Izanami says, moving up beside me. He will be great in time, writing his own fate. He is one of the few who may manage that. Uzumaki Naruto is constrained by his fate, even though it dictates greatness for him. So too is Uchiha Sasuke constrained. But Rock Lee, alone of your students, is able to write his own fate. He defied his destiny and became a shinobi when he was originally fated never to graduate the academy. Fate has no more hold on him, and I feel he will be among the greatest of this age, she says quietly, smiling gently. May his flame burn brightly and long in this world. Indeed, I say, quietly assessing my students. They are my charge now. To guard and to train, to make the strongest they can be. I will shield them against all foes, and one day they will not need me to shield them. They will suffer under my tutelage, but they will grow strong, I vow to myself. They will be the greatest living shinobi ever to walk this world. Time skip to 3 months later. Well, we get to return to the boundaries of Konoha, Naruto says, grimacing. I know. I miss the clearing already. Yamamoto-sama and us have spent a lot of happy days there. Sure, we were bleeding, nearly broken, and exhausted almost every single moment of those days, but they were happy ones, Sasuke continued. Konoha is indeed too small for our flames of youth, Lee declares quietly. It is the precious charge we are granted to guard against all dangers. It is the place we will lay down our lives to protect, he says. But it isn't home. Home is that wooden house, our rooms in it, the clearing we've been training in each day, Sasuke decides. Sasuke and myself may have learned ninjutsu, and from our sensei to augment our abilities, Naruto continues the litany. But we all gave our blood, our sweat, and our tears to the art of taijutsu, of stealth, of all the arts of the silent assassin. I indeed taught Naruto and Sasuke ninjutsu and in the last month, with Kakashi's help, and picked up a lot of ninjutsu myself, finally figuring out how to fuel them with dot, but I turned them into silent killers first, who don't need chakra to do their job. The proudest moment of my time as a teacher was when Naruto beat a pair of Anbu who hadn't trained with him and went through my training course, brought in to test him, without ever using chakra. Both Anbu used ninjutsu and Naruto beat them barehanded, putting them in the hospital for a week. Yuichiro toughened them up a lot during her playtime, and I did my part to strengthen them as well. Yes. We learned together and we bled together. As the clan heir of the Uchiha, if you are willing, I would like to adopt you as my brothers, Sasuke says. You would be entitled to use the Uchiha name and clan crest. Itachi wouldn't object. Of course, Lee says. You are my brother in all but name. We have been through too much not to be brothers. I accept, Naruto agrees. We're brothers, bonded by blood and hard work. All three of us have become geniuses of hard work, as Lee would put it, he says. He is right. All three put in a lot of work. Naruto and Sasuke have allowed their hair to grow out, becoming spiky and something of a mane similar to my own, though they haven't gotten their hair anywhere near as long as mine yet. Mine stretches to my waist, their hair barely stretches past their shoulders. All three have their new muscle structure, starting to become similar to mine, but without the definition being good enough to pick out every single muscle yet, prominently displayed by their training uniforms. They're physically in good enough shape to match a Junin without chakra, and with it, they are extremely strong by this world's standards. All three have katana sheathed across their backs, combat knives at their belts, and shuriken and kunai in pouches at their sides. Lee alone hasn't grown his hair out, keeping it in the bowl cut, but he has dyed it the same orange as my hair color, just as Naruto and Sasuke decided to do a month ago. Their headbands are currently worn, not having been seen at any time during the training period, and now they sit on the porch for what they seem to assume is the last time. Let's go trainees, we have a hike to Konoha. And don't act like you're saying goodbye to the only home you've ever known, I'm not letting you get lazy and out of shape. This is still our training grounds, I'm just going to toughen them up over the next few days, then we come back, I say, and they suddenly brighten. So we aren't staying in Konoha? Sasuke asks, and I nod. Correct. Now get moving. You might be able to be called genin, but you still are my trainees. Let me down and I'll make your lives not worth living, I promise seriously. Sir, yes sir. All three respond cheerfully. Good, now get moving. I didn't order you to sit around talking, did I? I scream, and they shake their heads, grab their packs, and start jogging towards Konoha. We have 1 hour to be in Konoha, and I have a nice relaxing 10-kilometer run that takes us that way, so step it up, genin. I roar and lead the group, followed by the Anbu, Kakashi, Guy, Anko, and Ikao, all of whom stayed and trained with my little group. Hawk's real name is Mai, I found out not long ago, and she took to the training with ease, enjoying every moment of the work that pushed her body to its limits. Shark has the same name as my failed trainee, but is in no way as incompetent as her. Izanami trained as hard as everyone else, and I used clones to oversee some exercises to give me time to train with my Zanpakuto. All in all, the last 3 months went well, and I picked up several new moves from my Zanpakuto and started refining them. The blue I once had in Zangetsu's Bankai has vanished, replaced by black and red, the colors I have taken on as a Shinigami. I refined my abilities with Quincy bows and have started finding the path to their release, called Volstandig. It comes in stages, naturally, as death is an ever-evolving thing, and for it to be encapsulated in a single stage of release is impossible. Okay trainees, start the cadence. I roar as we settle into a pace. 1 2 3 4, I love the Shinobi Corps. The others start as I join in, my armor, so I can enter Konoha without being mistaken for a samurai, which I am not right now. My Onmitsukan uniform and the bandages wrapped around my torso make it very clear that I have worked for my muscle, and that starting a fight with me is the last thing anyone will ever do. According to Naruto, I have the kind of muscle he'd expect to see on the person who went hand to hand with the Hachibi and wrestled that demon, which apparently takes the form of a giant bull with octopus tentacles for tails, into submission. 5 6 7 8, this torture will never abate. The chant continues, moving into the second part of the 4 counts of the cadence chant we've established. My hair flowing behind me, I casually vault a boulder thrice my height, alighting for a moment on the top of it and leaping from it, getting nearly 100 meters of distance. 9 10 11 12, this training is torture worse than hell. They shout out in unison, matching footfalls to chant as each of them follows me over the boulder, landing lightly on their feet behind me. That kind of obstacle is nothing to them anymore. Konoha won't recognize them when they enter it. 13, 14, 15, 16, we are going to dish out a beating. They roar with enjoyment evident in their voices. Each has learned the pure joy of pushing themselves to their limits and gaining mastery of their own bodies. Not a muscle move that isn't under their control, every single movement is flawless and graceful. They are both brawlers and dancers, artists and juggernauts of war. They are still developing, and they will never be as purely destructive as me, nor can they match my now inhuman grace, but to the humans who inhabit this world, they will be as gods. Izanami, myself, the former servants, we cannot be matched by them, nor will they even approach within shouting distance of us for many decades yet, but we will have time. 1, 2, 3, 4, I love the shinobi corps. The chant returns to the beginning, roared out by exulting warriors. I grin madly and decide to push them as I step up the pace, casually covering 50 meters in the blink of an eye through raw speed alone, followed by them as they push themselves to try to match that without chakra. Izanami manages it, with Guy and Lee coming close, but there is still work to be done. I resume pace with them, stepping up the pace to double what it was before, the cadence increasing. Come on already trainees, we aren't getting paid to sit around and get fat. I roar back to them in a good-natured tone and receive joking curses and groans as a response as they step it up, maintaining the cadence chant and the new pace all the way to Konoha. When we arrive at the gates, none of them are even breathing hard or sweating. That was a light warm-up for the lot of them, and we'll have to see about getting some training done while in Konoha. Names? Izumo asks. I have always come through the gate in full armor, so he looks at me without recognition, even though we have spoken often during my trips 2 or 3 times a week into the village. Yamamoto Ichigo and trainees, here for a 7-day sabbatical from training outside the walls. Also here to grab a few missions inside Konoha, I say, and Izumo's eyes light up in recognition. Bet your armor on Ichigo. He jokingly chides. We don't need the Kunoichi seeing you and either leaving all us shinobi with no girls, but civilians are worse, trying to get us to the same level of muscle as you. He pleads, and I laugh. Sorry, I'm going in without armor today. Maybe I won't be recognized, I offer, and he nods thoughtfully. Yeah, you've always been in full armor before. So, who is your genin? He asks, looking at them without recognition, and I grin at the shock he's about to get. Rock Lee, Sasuke Uchiha, and Naruto Uzumaki, I tell him, and his jaw drops further than should be humanly possible. Close your mouth before a bird nests in there, I say seriously. Those 3 genin with hair the same color as yours, muscle starting to look like yours, and attitudes that say I'm tough, and I know it, now back off before I feed you your teeth are really the 3 I saw only 3 months ago. Katetsu asks incredulously, and I nod. How did you do it? Those 3 look like they could wrestle the Yondaime Reikage and make a good showing of it, he says. Hard work, I reply. You can join them on your off days, I offer, and he nods after a moment of thought. Sounds good, he answers, Izumo adding his agreement. We might actually get off gate duty if we look like they do, he says hopefully. I wouldn't be surprised if they could wrestle a Jinin into submission without chakra. They can actually, Kakashi says. I've seen them do it, and they are terrible when using chakra. They could definitely make Jinin without chakra in time. Well, pass on through. I'm sure you have stuff to do, Izumo says after I sign the register, and I signal to move forward at a jog. 1, 2, 3, 4 I begin, and the response is immediate. I love the shinobi corps. My trainees answer as one, jogging forward with me, taking up the chant again. 5, 6, 7, 8, this torture will never abate. They continue. I decided to simply head for the ramen stand Naruto mentioned in our late-night conversations, and which he gave directions to several times. When we arrive, we find Kurenai, Asuma, and another Jinin, Inyazukatsume, all with their teams, one of them the Team 3 Lee's former teammates were reassigned to, sitting there. Another Jinin, this one probably Sasuke's brother given the resemblance between him and how Sasuke looked when I first met him, which makes him Itachi Uchiha, and the group is rounded out by the Sandaime Hokage, who is talking with Asuma. Who are those people that just arrived? And why are there Anbu with them? Why are they wearing Konoha headbands? Kiba asks, glaring suspiciously at us as we walk into the stand. The waitress at the stand comes over to take our orders, sees Naruto's eyes, and apparently connects the dots as she gasps in shock. Naruto, Sasuke, and Lee move over to the Sandaime, and I see Sakura barge into the stand a moment later. I grin, as this is chaos waiting for someone to happen to, and probably amusement for me. The Sandaime sees Sakura, sees the Anbu, makes the correct assumption, and blanches as my genin forms a single rank in front of the Sandaime. The Chunin I don't know is sitting by him, though given his looks, I'm guessing he's the Iruka sensei Naruto told me about. Okage-sama, Team 7 is reporting for duty in the village sir. My genin barks in unison. Welcome back to Konoha, Team 7. "It's good to see you again Naruto," Sasuke, Lee, Sandame says, and several people fall from their chairs, including the girl who was once on Lee's team, Tenten. I believe her name is Sasuke-kun. Sakura screams and tries to grab onto him, only to have Naruto's hand shoot out without Naruto even looking at her and grabbing her arm. Then Naruto turns and throws her across the street, then returns to his place looking as if nothing just happened, leaving several people staring in shock. "Naruto baka. I'll kill you." Sakura screams, and as one, all three of my genin draw their blades and turn to face her, katana in their right hands, combat knives in their left. There is no way that the one with the blue eyes is Naruto, the Yamanaka girl on Asuma's team breathes. The Hyuga girl on Kurenai's team doesn't even speak, just falls from her chair with blood running from her nose as she sees Naruto. Sakura storms over to my team, about to try and hit Naruto, and probably going to lose her hand if she does, when I intervene and grab her arm, raising her into the air until we're at eye level, with her futilely kicking at me to try and get me to let go. "Civilian Haruno," I growl at her, and she blanches. "I told you never to come within a kilometer of my trainees again when you quit the training course that might, one day, have made you worth something. So you had better have a very, very good explanation for why you have decided to break that restriction, or I will save my trainees the trouble and remove your arm myself, am I clear?" I demand. "Sir, yes sir," she squeaks, terrified. "Now, why have you disobeyed the restriction?" I ask and turn to see the reactions of the rest. The Hokage is quietly praying that I don't do more than kill Haruno to correct the irritation I have just suffered. The others have blanched, and the Inyazuka boy, Kiba, is being held back by his mother, with Asuma holding Iruka back. My love for Sasuke-kun conquers all boundaries. "You can't keep us apart," she shouts. I grin evilly. "Wrong answer," I growl, drawing my blade. "Genin Sasuke Uchiha, have you ever asked for, welcomed, or even allowed the civilians' attention?" I ask, and he shakes his head. Sakura wails as if it's her death sentence, which it probably is. "Sir, no sir. I have never done any of those things, and I have requested both restraining orders on her and told her to stop annoying me several times, with no success sir." He reports concisely, just as I taught him to do. "If you choose to kill her for disobeying your direct orders, I have no objection, and indeed fully support you sir." Trusting that I'll take care of things, my genin sheathes their blades. "Very good, Genin Sasuke Uchiha. Now, I believe your brother, as clan head, needs to hear something." I ask as I toss Haruno aside, deciding that she can wait for later. After all, I have time, and maybe she'll get lucky, I'll forget about her, and she'll actually learn something. And if she doesn't, I can always kill her later. I have plenty of time to deal with her, and there are more important things to do right now, due to what is about to be revealed, and there are many possible responses to it. "Yes, sir," Sasuke replies. Itachi is clan head, both because he saved his clan and because his father died in the Iwa attack, and Sasuke turns to him. "Sir, my teammates have become as close to me as brothers sir. They have bled alongside me in training, suffered alongside me, and kept me from dying due to various causes, among them man-eating rabbits, giant spiders, hordes of blood-drinking bats, man-eating plants, and hungry crocodiles sir. Due to this closeness we have developed, I decided to adopt them into the clan sir. I request your formal approval, however they will be Uchiha, whether you like it or not sir." He barks out. "Very good Sasuke. You are becoming your own person, to stand up to me like this," Itachi replies. I of course grant approval. "I could do no less, and I am sure your teammates will be a credit to the clan. Rock Lee, or should I say Lee Uchiha, may not be able to mold chakra, however that is acceptable. He is a fine shinobi, and there is the procedure I instituted they will need to go through," he says. Itachi instituted a policy of saving the Sharingan eyes of fallen Uchiha, so they could be implanted into worthy shinobi or into adoptees of the clan, and with the improvement Itachi had made on that implantation process, the eyes can be activated or deactivated at will. Also, the Sharingan only requires internally fed chakra to be activated, not molded, so Lee can use it, even if he likely never will. "Understood, sir," Sasuke replies, and salutes his brother. "No need to be so formal, Sasuke," Itachi reply with an amused tone. "I am perfectly fine with you calling me by my name, not sir. We are brothers after all," he says. "Understood, Itachi," Sasuke replies. "I see you've been training hard, given how you've developed. I take it your hair is modeled after that of your sensei?" Itachi queries, and Sasuke nods in confirmation. "Indeed," Naruto replies. "All of us decided to dye our hair like senseis because he turned us into proper genin who excel in the time-honored ninja arts of lying, stealing, stabbing targets in the back, and being able to sneak into any kitchen, anywhere, to poison our target with some poison that will never be identified," he says cheerfully, as every other genin in the ramen stand blanches. Then Kiba starts laughing. Yeah right Naruto, as if you could manage any of that, he says, and Naruto grins very nastily as a civilian who managed to irritate him a minute ago when we were about to enter the stand, takes a bite out of the apple he just bought and falls to the ground choking a few steps later, clawing at his throat as the poison takes effect. An undetectable powder that Naruto has taken to quite nicely, dried from a leaf of the man-eating plants, which contains the paralysis poison in their needles. It is almost entirely undetectable even if the searchers know what they're looking for, vanishes entirely within an hour, and the effects can be very specifically measured out. The man took in a lethal dose, and the effects of the poison look like those of a dozen common poisons, twice that many uncommon ones, and bears a marked resemblance that sends searchers on the wrong track entirely to 4 very rare compound poisons that aren't usually available in Konoha, as the sources of those poisons aren't found in this country. Also, the poison is obscure, with maybe 3 people outside my trainees knowing of it, with Naruto being the one who pretty much discovered it, doing so entirely by accident. That proves nothing. Kiba retorts as a knife suddenly appears in Naruto's hands. It actually does, the Hokage says. Naruto, try not to poison every single civilian in Konoha please, or I'll be forced to keep you here, rather than letting you return to those training grounds you've made your home in, he says, and Naruto curses as the knife vanishes. I have seen too many ninja in that style not to recognize one when I see one. The military formality allowing them to hold on to the iron discipline that makes them so deadly is nothing new to me. That formality, that discipline, is the one thing that separates the shadowy killers like Naruto has become from psychopaths, he says, and everyone in the stand outside my trainees pales. It is a threat to normality. They are assassins. They are deep cover operatives. They are covert messengers, and those who we assign to seduce targets either to cut their throats while they sleep or gather information. Not necessarily ninjutsu specialists, but I do not mind admitting that every single shinobi of that particular breed terrifies me. They are taijutsu specialists usually. They don't use chakra. They don't need it to do their job. Instead, they have caution, perfect control of every muscle, and a deadly competence and attention to details that puts the most paranoid shinobi outside their select circle to shame, he lectures the so-called genin. I see, Nara says, grasping what my genin has become. Yes, I think you do, the Hokage says kindly. The shadows in the corner of your eye, gone when you look at them. The terror that grips you in the night. The shadow that is always there, within the deepest darkness. That is what all of them, genin or anbu, have become. I congratulate you on your work, Yamamoto-san, he says wearily. I may wish such competent killers were unnecessary, but you have made them well, he admits. They are a credit to the Konoha of its first days. The Konoha built on the blood of patriots, when one shinobi did what teams now do, killing in the name of their village and shedding the blood of all who got in the way of their missions. We can afford our high-minded ideals now, but only because those like Naruto, Sasuke, and Lee now are still doing their work in the shadows, avoiding the light of day. I am proud of all 3 of them, he says. At the Chunin exams, their promotions are guaranteed. They certainly have the competence to be Chunin anyways, he says. I certainly hope so, after all the work I've put into them, I reply, and he nods, a weary smile on his face. The other genin just stares at mine in horror as the truth of what they have become dawns on them. At least until Tsume whacks Kiba in the back of the head. Show some respect to your betters, pup, she snarls. Those 3 are prepared to put themselves into that hell and dance on that line between light and darkness every single moment to keep you from having to, she explains. No respect is necessary, Tsume-sama, Naruto says. We are monsters, and we know it, but we will be Konoha's monsters, he says almost sadly. Monsters aren't to be respected. They're to be hated and feared, even by those who control them, he continues, and Asuma swears viciously as he rises from his seat. I've lost my appetite. I knew what they were going to become when you gave them their sensei, Hokage-sama, but I hate having to hear it. Even knowing they were volunteers, going into the training knowing what they would become. Even knowing that we have to have new black operatives, I hate the reality of it, he snarls. Wait, you 3 volunteered to become what you are? Nara suddenly asks, and they swiftly adjust to their new reality that Asuma has instructed them to assume, even as Asuma stalks out of the stand and nods in unison. The ramen chef and waitress, along with Iruka, look as if their hearts are breaking. You have my respect, Nara says with a slow salute that he holds. If you ever need help, just ask, and if I can provide it, I'll do so, he says. Shikamaru, what are you saying? The Yamanaka girl demands. You're practically committing the Nara to help those 2 monsters, she says, and Kurenai wheels on her in a fine fury, eyes blazing, but the Nara beats her to it. Those 3 monsters. Sasuke is just as irretrievable. But maybe, if they have friends who know not to ask too many questions about what they do and can find a balance between the light they walk in and the shadows these 3 chose to hunt in, they can at least have a normal life while in Konoha, even if nowhere else. I'm not going to press them for information. I'm not going to make them do anything less than what they chose as their duty, I'm just going to be there if they need me, and I'm going to help them. I'll give them a place where they can be themselves, not what Konoha has called upon them to be, he snarls and slaps her. She reels, and even as she raises her head again, rage in her eyes, another slap follows from Kurenai. I couldn't agree more, Genin Nara, she growls. Yamanaka, your family groomed you for T&I torture and interrogation. You should know this kind of darkness. Your father lives in it. Your mother lives in it. They pretend they walk in the light when people are looking, but the shadows are their home. Respect others who walk those dark paths, Kurenai snarls. I am sorry, Naruto, Yamanaka says. The Hyuga has woken and looks ready to take Kurenai's example, but at Yamanaka's apology, she turns and walks over to me, bowing to me. Yamamoto-sensei, I humbly request that you teach me the way of the shadows, she says. I look at her and sign. Why? A crush. Some infatuation with the idea of the shadows. Forget it, and if it's a crush, support them. But don't follow them. They need a lifeline, something to link them to normalcy, I tell her gently. My father sees me as useless. As weak. I don't want to be given the cage bird seal and turned into a slave. And you're right. It is a crush. But not Sasuke, no, it is Naruto I admire. He always got up no matter what, had the strength I didn't. And now, I want to be with him, she explains. It clearly takes all her courage to admit this, and I sigh again. She clearly senses that this is her one chance to follow him into the path he has chosen, and that if I deny her here, she will not have the strength to stand alone when Naruto vanishes into the shadows. My armor materializes, and I snarl to myself as the helm covers my face. Can she do it? Can she become a soldier? Or will she break under the pressure? Naruto looks at me, making the same judgment, asking the same questions, and a request is clear in his eyes. I still don't think your reasons are good ones, girl, I say. But you'll break if I don't allow you this. So I have little choice. Watching you become a monster is better than watching you break. You had better have a lot of inner strength because this is going to be hard for you. Naruto, she's your responsibility for a while at least, once your training resumes, I order. Yes sir, Naruto says quietly. I hear his unvoiced thanks and nod as my armor vanishes once more. Tell your father what you have chosen. Make your peace with your friends and family. Soon, you will either break entirely, die during the training, or be beyond their contempt. Be ready for any of those possibilities, I instruct, and she nods. Thank you, Yamamoto-sensei, she says. Don't thank me, girl. Not for this, I say. I took the temper of the strands of fate not long after I began training Naruto, Sasuke, and Lee. This was what they needed to become. But I regret the innocents I killed. Hinata, I wish you good luck, Kurenai says, and thus releases her into my care. The paperwork for the transfer will need to be in my keeping by tomorrow, I tell the Hokage. He nods sadly, and I turn to Itachi. My apologies for what had to be done. But Sasuke was going to be consumed by revenge if this didn't happen, and that would have been worse, I tell him with total assurance. I know. I've seen what revenge can make people. You saved something, at least. Thank you, Itachi replies. I did what was necessary. I am a soldier, and they are soldiers. They have a desire, and in trade for the ability to accomplish that desire, I gave them a duty. I came to Konoha to get a few D ranks and C ranks. Maybe a B rank or 3. They can yet be children for a while, even if their innocence will never be fully theirs again, I say. I know. And at least they are prepared for this. I wasn't when I went to war, Itachi tells me. The Chunin exams will mark the beginning of their true work. I'll do my best for them, but they will always have their duty first, I reply, and he nods. I have a rather interesting C rank. It's a bit suspicious because of certain recent events, but it will take you out of Konoha for a while. A mission to oversee the construction of a bridge, the Hokage tells me, looking slightly happier. Kiba and the Aburam boy are both saluting my genin, the salutes returned with perfect precision. Military formality is maintained here to some extent, but it's only vital for those like Black Ops and T&I, who need something to hold on to. We'll take it. If it's innocent, we won't be too inconvenienced. If it isn't, we'll be able to handle it. My genin can beat a Junin in combat without the usage of chakra, after all. Junin with enough experience will be trouble, and sparring is always, no matter how hard you try, different from battles, but we'll handle anything short of 5-1 in Junin, I think, I assure him. I agree. I have a that allows me to watch the training of your genin. They'll do well, the Hokage replies. Should I go get the mission scroll, Hokage-sama? The Chunin I assume to be Iruka asks. Indeed, if you don't mind, Iruka, Sandame answers. Yamamoto-san, Uchiha-san, would you mind going with him and bringing the client back as well? Not at all, I reply, and Itachi answers a similar negative. Genin, grab a meal, we leave the moment myself and Itachi return with the client. As for the rest of my little group, we won't need you on this mission, I think, I answer, and receive nods confirming my orders. I walk outside the stand with my two companions, and immediately the sound inside the stand cuts off. I'm not especially worried, as Izanami will tell me anything I need to know, and Yuichiro is currently hiding behind the sandame, so I have information if they try to derail things, and I continue on to the Hokage tower. Both of us know who you are, Izanagi-sama, Itachi says quietly. I trust you when you say my brother would otherwise be consumed by vengeance. But could no other way be found with your vast power, no possibility that was open? He pleads. Haruka is also looking at me pleadingly, and I hate myself for what the strands of fate manipulated me into doing. However, if I didn't do this, the balance of life and death I am sworn to preserve would be thrown off, and darkness would rule here. The souls of the now dying Death Guard back home are necessary as well, as one of the other worlds is currently having its population rip each other to shreds, and otherwise we would have to purge the Rakongai. I remind myself that the balance is all, and that this is for the best for this world, and answer. No. There was another way to save Sasuke. But the world would have been doomed. I chose the word, Itachi, I answered. I see. And it was the same for Naruto? Itachi asks, and I nod grimly. As one with my own responsibilities, I understand. You had to look at the masses before you looked at the individual. Balance is all, he said, somehow reading my mind. As a brother, I can't thank you for what had to be done, Haruka adds his piece. But if it was Naruto or the world, I know how he would pick. You did the right thing, he says. The right thing sometimes isn't what you want to do when it is for the good of all, but at times it is the only choice, I say quietly. I know. If you need a drink, you are welcome among the Uchiha. We know who you are, and soon the clan will know what has happened. You honor us by taking a hand in Sasuke's destiny. I just wish he had more choice than the shadows or the darkness, Itachi mourns. I'll take you up on that, I reply grimly. I'm going to need the drink. So, what are you doing now? Izumo asks as my team leaves, accompanied by Hinata and the client, who turned out to be an old drunkard who thinks he can lie through his teeth to shinobi, who lie as a profession. How can anyone, even a civilian, be that stupid? Heading out on a mission to Wave. Looks like a fairly routine bodyguard run, with minimal risk, I say, but my hand signals, in the Konoha code I quickly picked up from the Anbu, tell a much different story. I begin with the signs for expected multiple charges in bodyguard mission, transition to multiple possible targets, follow it up with objectives unclear, and finish with high risk expected, enemy shinobi in numbers likely. Izumo nods and signals back covertly, his words covering up for him. Should be a nice vacation run then. I heard there aren't many bandits in that area, he says, and I feel guilt emanating from the old man's barely existent spiritual aura. Everyone has one, and any halfway decent Shinigami can read them, but by the kami, are all civilians outside ninja villages going to have auras this week? I doubt I can unseal beyond 2% and use a shikai if that's so, for fear of killing everyone nearby. Izumo is signaling frantically, and I don't like the story his signs are telling. Nin team went missing near Wave, followed by expected that bandits are concentrating for major action, the disaster waiting for someone to happen, due explained even further by known shipping magnate active near Wave, possibly attempting takeover, the expected degree of disaster heightened by missing ninja of high level known to be active nearby. But the final sign that confirms that this mission is trouble, that being shipping magnate has shown preference for hiring missing ninja and bandits as private military. If this turns bad, we could be dealing with a small army, and there might be someone who can approach closely enough to my sealed level to have a chance at getting lucky and taking me out. I knew the last months were too good to be true, and I absent-mindedly summoned the jeweled spear I've kept at the ready for the last months, twirling it in one hand. We move fast though, just in case. Naruto, carry the client. Lee, carry Hinata. We move through the trees wherever possible. I don't want to drop below 20 kilometers an hour for any reason the entire trip, am I clear? I ask. Hi, Naruto replies. Gone is the military discipline, and in its place is the competence of a trained, highly lethal killer. Ichiru, mind scouting ahead of us? I ask her, and she leaps from her perch on my shoulder, her face set like stone. She knows the hand signals of Konoha as well, and my genin could read them with ease. All of them are fully serious, faces set in grim lines as professionals prepare to go to work. She shakes her head and leaps into the trees, vanishing ahead of us at speeds the civilian obviously can't follow, and which my genin has some trouble tracking. Hinata is barely able to follow her, seeing where she was a couple seconds ago, rather than where Yuichiro actually is, as the apparently young, innocent girl begins to lay out a scouting pattern covering everything in a 180-degree arc for a full kilometer ahead of us. Sasuke, take up a rearguard when we're on the move. If anything tries to come at us without our knowledge, deal with it, I order, and he nods quietly. I leap into the trees a second later, Naruto and Lee following a few moments later, their charges slung across their backs, secured by the webbing and straps created for that purpose on the top of their traveling packs. Used to move an important item usually, but it holds slow clients and comrades just fine, and the extra weight won't slow them down enough that they'll fall below the pace I set. Moments later, as Yuichiro reaches the 1 kilometer mark ahead of us, we move swiftly and with assurance, our footfalls leaving not even a single flutter of leaves, as we jump from tree to tree, our speed higher than it could ever be on the ground. We take to the treetops not long after we enter the trees, trusting that height and speed will keep ambushes from happening anytime soon. At our current speed, assuming we travel through the night and eat on the move, as we very easily can, we'll be in the land of waves an hour before dawn, which is at 6 in the morning this time of year. I really don't like that thought and step up the pace to 30 kilometers an hour. It's 11 in the morning precisely right now, and it would be an 18-hour trip at 20 kilometers an hour, so at 30 I run the math in my head and curse. I want to arrive earlier than 11 at night. I decide to allow my genin to use chakra for self-enhancement and flash them to signal to do so as I step the pace up to a full 40 kilometers an hour. We'll arrive at 8 tonight, assuming no delays, and that will remove several hours from the possibility of nighttime ambush, as well as make it possible to get a proper watch and trap network set up. We travel in silence, the occasional hand signal flashing between us, our baggage becoming properly silent as well after a threat to stitch the client's mouth shut if he screamed for us to slow down one more time. Hinata kept silent from the start. At least she can pick up on a trend and stay with it. There might be hope for her yet. About an hour away from Wave, we spot an ambush that was apparently laid not long ago. The illusion of a puddle, which Kyoka Sugetsu's abilities let me see through, revealed the hiding shinobi. A poor cover, and they set it up not long ago. The chakra traces are still fresh. We traded stealth for speed, but apparently their detection abilities are poor, as are their abilities with illusion. The chakra matrix of the illusion is sloppy, poorly woven, and it can't have been cast more than 15 minutes ago. Anyone competent should have known we were coming a good hour in advance, and I see partially concealed evidence of a recent campfire nearby. A bad decision. A fire in this area, when trying to set up an ambush, is poor strategic planning against a competent foe. We are forced to travel on the ground, and my hand drops to Suzumashi as I leap into the air. Suzumashi Nishiki. Benihikm, I whisper, and the blades created by the technique thunk into the ground and into the chain used by the two enemy shinobi, binding them unless they release their primary offensive weapon. Nake, Suzumashi, I say softly as I land by the two, putting barely any power into the technique, the clear bell-like sound heard only by the two missing ninja, who I identify as the Demon Brothers. I allow the blades created by Benihikm to split into the they were made from, and detach the chain from their gauntlets. A moment later, Sasuke arrives as my team slows to a halt for a few moments. Waiting for us? Naruto asks to confirm his suspicions, and I nod. Yes. Former Chiknin. A minor threat. Sasuke, summon one of your crows, I say. Itachi allowed Sasuke to sign the crow summoning contract when he graduated, and I am glad that he has the capability. We need to get someone out here to retrieve them. A summons can take a message for us very quickly. You and your brother agreed he would summon a specific crow every hour to serve as a messenger, correct? I ask, and Sasuke nods. They represent an intelligence resource. Send a message, I say, and 3 minutes later the Demon Brothers are bound and we are back on the move, the matter of the client lying about the mission left for later, as it should be. Ahead of us is a much better concealed and stronger presence, and I silently inform Naruto and Lee of the potential enemy lying in wait. A half-dozen heartbeats later, Naruto flashes a warning to Sasuke by mirror, and Sasuke quickly moves to join us as Yuichiro falls back, carrying a preliminary report. Mamachi Zabuza, a rogue Jinin. No trouble for this team. The accomplice dressed as a hunter ninja, presumably a failsafe. Not a problem. We flash over the terrain, landing only briefly on the water as we dash over it, with me being grateful I had picked up water walking as a just in case. I'm pretending to be a shinobi, after all. Let's try not to mess this up, you two, Sasuke says to Naruto and Lee, as they create an ambush plan 5 minutes before we are due to make contact, Hinata and the client, Tazuna if I remember right, being handed off to Yuichiro, who has no trouble carrying both across her back, one on top of the other. She falls back to protect our vulnerable elements, and Lee splits off to handle the accomplice as Naruto and Sasuke prepare for a two-pronged counter ambush. 5 minutes later, precisely on schedule, a giant blade comes whirring by, my genin having slowed to walking pace 3 minutes ago to set things up properly. The blade buries itself in a tree, and a man with a set of straps crossing his otherwise bare torso, wearing a tilted kiri headband on his forehead with cloth wrapped over the rest of his face, striped blue leggings and cowhide covering his shins and forearms, appears on top of the handle. A moment later, a hail of kunai from Sasuke nearly skewer him as Naruto vanishes in a puff of smoke, the real Naruto using Shunshin to appear behind him, standing on the side of the tree, combat knife coming for his back. Zabuza frantically leaps from the handle of the blade, snatching his sword away as he falls to the ground, bringing it in front of him to deflect the kunai. Then I step in, as my students have failed with their first strike, he's now mine to deal with. Tire, Senbon, I mutter, opting for the dramatic entrance. A minor kid and a well-chosen approach vector halo me in moonlight, my summoned robes fluttering in a non-existent wind as my white scarf, a gift from Byakuya and a replica of hers, trails behind me, cherry blossoms circling me as if driven by the wind, when they are in fact the blades of Senbon. Several blossoms float near Zabuza, and I take advantage. A carefully concealed motion of the hilt of Senbon later, only Zabuza's instincts, somehow recognizing the threat, save him as one of the tiny blades slices into him, cutting away the straps across his chest, and leaving a bleeding cut on him reaching from his navel to his collarbone, and he curses loudly. Now that the first attack has failed, there is protocol to be observed, and I do so. Konoha Black Operations Team 7, engage the enemy, I order. Hi, Tachm, my students reply as Zabuza blanches, and a young girl wearing a black and brown pinstripe shirt and pants which stop at the knees under a blue haori is thrown into Zabuza, impacting him in the back and causing him to stumble and drop onto one knee as Lee arrives on the battlefield, finishing a square formation around the two shinobi. Ichiru arriving a moment later and hanging back with Hinata and Tazuna, letting them see the fight with only minimal danger. The Black Ops team? Zabuza asks incredulously. How is my luck so bad as to get a team that knows precisely what it's doing all the way out here for nothing more than C-rank pay? He asks, looking at my genin as if hoping I'm bluffing. Perfect. A trio of the best killers around and a Black Ops captain, who I'd be reluctant to fight on my best day and his worst, he snarls. No, they're a bit young to be full ops. Genin, maybe in training for the role, but not there yet. However, that's bad in and of itself, and they aren't going to be pushovers in combat, and the captain is enough to significantly upgrade the threat, he reasons. Zabuza-sama, should we retreat? His accomplice asks, and Zabuza shakes his head. We can't, Haku. We won't break out of their square fast enough to keep the other three from woe. He shouts as a kunai nearly buries itself in his back, with him barely dodging. A second kunai redirects it for another attempt, and a third kunai sends all three in at angles where Zabuza has to be hit by one, and all three are aimed at nasty points. He snarls and whirls, dodging two and the third being buried in his left arm. Let a man talk, will you? He shouts, only to be answered with a combat knife coming for his throat as Naruto blurs forward, Lee engaging this Haku into jutsu a second later, Haku desperately trying to escape. Zabuza parries the knife and focuses on the fight, obviously not wanting to be beaten by a genin. He gains an advantage a few moments later, using his greater experience to manipulate Naruto onto the water, as water clones materialize behind Naruto, forcing him to engage them as Zabuza goes to Haku's aid, cursing loudly as a fireball disrupts his plan. Sasuke gets close in and starts making Zabuza's life a misery, as Naruto is kept occupied by a good dozen water clones, blades flashing. Lee goes down to a pair of well-placed as Haku gets lucky, and I blur forward and toss him out of the line of fire. Withdraw, I will finish this, I say. Haku's mask is destroyed, revealing dark brown eyes and a fairly pretty face. I dismiss looks however and bring Senbon whipping forward, the blade dissolving into cherry blossoms as Sasuke leaps back. Watch out. Zabuza orders Haku, clearly recognizing the blossoms now. He leaps away and is followed by the tiny blades, cursing loudly as they slice apart whatever is in their path. Senbon comes flying at me and blossoms intercept them, cutting them in half before they come anywhere near me, Senkai partially manifesting even in Shikai. Selected blossoms become blades that go flying at Haku and Zabuza, the idea taken from the flying blades used by Emiya. Zabuza deflects them, and Haku dodges them, but I increase the weight of fire to halt them getting lucky. Tire, Senbon, I say clearly, and each blade now lying on the ground, the fallen blades forming a ring around their targets, formed from a single blossom each, dissolve into 1,000 blossoms apiece. And I fired a full 1,000 blades. Senbon, I order, and a quarter of my new blossoms become blades. Oh, now that just isn't fair, Zabuza says, he and Haku using Shunshin to escape barely in time, the blades acting like they do in their original form of blossoms, and following them in accordance with the movements of the hilt of the blade, concealed within my robes, both hands in the pocket of my robes. Shuriken no jutsu, he says desperately, flipping through hand seals. An immense dragon of water roars forth at Naruto, even as a blade buries itself in his right lung. Zabuza tears the blade from him and takes advantage of the fact that I had to dissolve my blades to shield Naruto with the blossoms to escape, Haku assisting him. Several volleys of Byakurai follow them, Haku and Zabuza barely dodging before my line of fire is obscured. When the water settles, Naruto having dodged by leaping back onto the land, the two have vanished, but I can still sense their signatures. I raise one hand and gather power, preparing to try one last trick. Ad number 88, Hiryuchek is Oku Shinton Rame, I whisper, and a column of electricity roars forth from my outstretched hand, vaporizing everything for half a kilometer, leaving only a smoking trench 10 meters wide behind. However, I still sense Zabuza fleeing, and I curse. Sensei, do we pursue? Lee asks. I shake my head, and he gets out his notebook, anticipating the following lecture. No, and for quite a few reasons, I say, signaling for Yuichiro to go and find Tazuna's home, which he told us was the destination we were heading to once we slowed to walking speed a few minutes back. She leaps into the trees and vanishes in a blur of speed. The 12th sin of combat is letting an enemy get away, as they then know your tricks and can prepare for them. However, the 13th sin applies here as well. The 13th is splitting your forces when you are unsure of the enemy numbers. Sometimes, you have to accept the sins of combat as things you must do, but never accept the 7th, 8th or 10th, I instruct him. Hi, sensei, he says eagerly, Naruto and Sasuke both taking notes as well. Then there are several others arguing for us not to follow. The 14th, attacking an enemy on his own ground. A foe is always most dangerous in their own lair. The 15th, letting an enemy who got away choose the battlefield. Zabuza has now seen some of what we can do, and if we follow him, he will sense us, and he will direct us to a battlefield of his choosing, where he can negate our tricks, I tell them. Then there is the 16th, which is fairly important in and of itself. The 16th is assuming you know the abilities of the enemy from their file. Our information on Zabuza is old, comes from Kiri, not Konoha, so we have no way of knowing if it is accurate, and it doesn't have much anyways. Zabuza could be an expert at using lava element techniques, for all we know. Becoming a Jinin in the traditional manner requires mastery of 2 elements. There are other ways, but Zabuza, from what we know, did things traditionally after he killed his class. All we know is that he can use a sword and water element techniques, I continue. I see. So if we pursue, he can very easily have some surprises waiting for us, Naruto reasons, and I nod. 17th sin, assuming you know the terrain from the map. You do not learn terrain from a map, you learn it by traveling over it. Zabuza no doubt knows this area. We do not. He has had time to prepare battlefields and traps. He is wounded, he'll keep for a while if we don't pursue. 18th sin, assuming the enemies you've seen are all that there are. Ichiru is going to find Tazuna's house, and we don't know if it has already been attacked by accomplices of Zabuza, if it is trapped, if there are listening devices there, or anything else. We're going into the unknown, and breaking off forces for pursuit when we may need them shortly is foolish, I snarl. Got it? Never assume except on the negative side of things, Sasuke agrees, and I nod again. Now, there is the 19th sin. Assuming an enemy doesn't know the terrain a lot better than you do. Always start with that assumption, and it keeps you alive longer. They know the terrain, you don't. Assume that even in Konoha. There is always the chance for surprise from the enemy. 20th sin through 23rd apply here. 20th is getting caught up in a running battle. That is a recipe for disaster, because you get focused on the fight, not on the trap you're probably getting dragged into, I say, and all my genin nods as they understand my point. 21st is fighting when you have been injured. Naruto is bleeding currently, and Zabuza is heading for the water. There are rumors that the swordsmen of the mist shared the shark summons between them, and if that's true, going near water would be bad. We get drawn into a fight involving those, things are going to turn nasty. Also, Lee is still recovering from his short-term paralysis. 22nd is not taking the chance to choose the battlefield whenever possible. By logic, Zabuza is here for Tazuna, not for us. Thus, we can choose the battlefield and fight him at the bridge. Or, more preferable, we give him an hour or two to feel safe, then go, find his lair, and take either him or his employer out, I say, and Naruto starts grinning. Finally, the 23rd. Not appreciating the capabilities you know your enemy has. Zabuza has been evading Hunter Ninja for years. He may be laying a false trail, and that would be bad. We'd go off track and end up in a trap. Or worse, he could be leading us into another force entirely. It wouldn't be odd for Kiri Shinobi to be around here, especially if they knew he was, and if he led us into them, that would be bad for us, I say. Got it, Lee says, finishing his notes. Tazuna says. His employer is Gaten. I see, I say, grinning as I materialize my armor. This calls for a change of plans, in that case. Gaten is a thorn in Konoha's side, and has been watched for some time, since his empire has been getting closer to Konoha. Now we can seize his money, since his minions attacked us. Okay, change of plans. Gaten's location is a known variable. Does he hire any other shinobi? I asked Azuna. 1. Looks like a cross between a man and a shark. Called Kisame Hoshigaki, Tazuna says. Excellent, I say, grinning widely. In fact, as close to perfect as I could hope for, given who he could have hired, I say, and Sasuke looks puzzled. Hoshigaki's sword eats chakra. Most ninja need chakra to be deadly. You don't. He has used that sword for years, and last reports were that he relied on it to stop ninjutsu rather than dodging, and that his close quarters combat skill had degraded, I tell him, and he starts grinning as well. So, how do you think beating an S-class shinobi will look on your records? I ask my genin, and they start grinning even more widely. Hinata, go with Yuichiro and look after Tazuna. We'll be back in the morning, once Gaten's forces are dealt with. Until then, look after the client, I order. Time to blood you three, I say, and leap into the trees. Hi, Teichin. Lee, Sasuke, and Naruto reply, following me. We attack at midnight. That will give them time to relax, I say. Also, it gives us time to take a look around, make sure of things, I instruct, and begin to leap through the trees. Why are we splitting our forces, Teichin? Naruto asks a few minutes later, and I decide to answer just to keep him quiet. Hoshigaki is not a stealthy person. I'd know if someone that strong is anywhere nearby, I say. Also, 24th sin of combat now applies. Engaging an enemy when you can't go all out. Now that we're away from Tazuna, I can do so. We can arrive at Gaten's mansion before Zabuza, who's likely to be cautious about things, and we'll be able to get everything set up, set traps for sentries, sneak into Gato's compound, and take out our targets. I think we should leave Momochi and Hoshigaki alive though. Their living through today opens up an opportunity for us. Now get the hoods that go with your uniform on, I order, and they get their hoods on, concealing their hair. They dyed it orange for a good reason besides flattering me, fortunately, or I'd have told them not to. People remember hair like that. They change the style, dye it or remove the dye, and maybe add contacts in Naruto's case to change eye color, and they become entirely new people so far as most observers are concerned. Got it? Now, who takes out the bandits and who deals with Gaten? Sasuke asks. Gaten's mansion is right by a cove where he keeps a yacht and where some of his ships make deliveries. There are 3 sides bandits can and likely will be camped on. The mansion is surrounded by a stone wall 4 meters high on those same 3 sides, set 100 meters out, and the trees cut back another 100 meters beyond that. I have the best chance of getting into the mansion without detection and dealing with Hoshigaki if something goes wrong. Momochi and his accomplice will likely be out of the way by then. Now, Gato's mansion is 10 stories, 3 of them underground, and his rooms are on the top floor. That's another argument for me going in. The operative will have to scale the building for easiest access, due to a quirk of Gaten's. He always insists the leftmost window of his bedroom be open. Also, he likes keeping large windows, easily large enough for me to get through. He won't keep guards in his room, he likes privacy too much, and he's a creature of habit, most of them bad. I'll go in and clean the mansion out, while you 3 deal with the bandits. Gaten's mansion has the west side facing the ocean, so we don't need to worry about the moonlight. Sasuke, you take south. Lee, east. Naruto, north. Keep it quiet as long as you can, I order. If they have prisoners, try and keep them alive. Hi, Teichin, they chorus, and we continue on in silence. Professionalism rules the hour now, and we leap from tree to tree, maintaining silence. When we arrive at the mansion, I drop to the ground and, moving forward in spirit form, as my genin spreads out to their responsibilities. I begin to identify the bandit leaders as I move among them, setting up perimeter traps, so those in each of the areas assigned to the genin can't go to the aid of those in another area. When I have a chance, I quietly materialize and several low-powered Byakurai flash from my fingertips for just a moment, killing multiple bandits. I toss the bodies out of the way, hiding them where they won't be found until the morning these scum will never see. I quietly identify and mark the prisoners, most of whom are female. Once that is done, roughly 2 hours before I'm to start my portion, I see the traps for the sentries are set to take them out all at once, maintaining the element of surprise. At 11, an hour before the operation is to start, the bandit camp is mostly asleep, and I signal for the initial phase to start, materializing for just a moment to do so. Then I once more and move to the mansion, materializing and scaling it quickly, quietly, and keeping to the shadows. When I find open windows or lights in the building, I slip through and kill whoever is in the room, then return to my portion of the job. 5 minutes before what was to be the starting time of the operation, midnight, I entered Gato's room. Time to get this party started, I decide, and draw a blade from my side, materializing my robes and scarf for the formality of things. Tire, Senbonzakura, I whisper, looking at the room. It is painted gold and silver, tapestries with the image of Gaten swimming in a sea of money on them, with Gaten wearing only swimming trunks. I did not need to see that. Gaten's bed is in the right corner of the room by the windows, a bed large enough for 10 people, the man himself in it. The blossoms poise themselves above him and Gaten stirs, seeming to sense something. Senkei, Senbonzakura, I order, and the blossoms become blades. After all, the blades don't need to be arranged in a dome like they usually are with Byakuya. Gaten wakes and opens his mouth to shout. I decide his open mouth makes an excellent target and one of the blades goes through it. Two more go through his eyes and a fourth pierces his heart. Target eliminated, I think as I move to confirm it. The blades dissolve into blossoms and reform the original blade, which I sheathe, drawing another as I grab the 2 notebooks by Gaten's bed, labeled as containing his business and account information. I check to make sure, and everything agrees with Konoha's records, so I slip the books into an inside pocket of my robes. Pair Kazushini, I say as I step out the door into the main mansion, entering the shadows. There are many guards on patrol in the mansion, and it is time for them to die. I see 2 guards walking towards me, not separated as they should be, with one catching anyone who came out of hiding after the first guard passed. They are talking and carrying torches, and I sneer in disgust. Their night vision is worthless, and they won't be able to hear anyone talking like that. Kazushini's blades go spinning towards them, the one in my left hand taking the head off the first guard, the other being bisected along his torso by the second a heartbeat later. The torches are snuffed out by the wind of the passing blades and snatched in the chain, brought back to me so I can set them on the ground without any betraying clatter of wood on wood. The soft thump of the bodies hitting the floor is nothing next to the sound that would have been made by that clatter, and I smile in cold satisfaction. 2 down. Did you hear something? I hear a guard ask several minutes later. I've been working my way through the guards, clearing 2 floors with ease, and now almost done with the third. All of them have been working in the same format as that first pair, and Kazushini has drunk deeply of their blood. Half of them were drunk and not even patrolling, for the sake of the gods. Sloppy work all around. The others weren't even carrying their weapons, and they honestly deserved to die if they were going to be that sloppy when they should know by now, from the reports Zabuza no doubt gave, that Black Ops members were in the area. These ones are not drunk however, one of them is noticeably ahead of the other, at least by a few paces, and both are carrying drawn swords. I decided to show my respect for them by actually taking their jobs seriously by letting them fall trying to do their jobs, not killing them without ever knowing it. They have also declined to carry torches, giving me less warning of their approach, though they are noisier than they should be. At least they're talking in whispers. What do you think you heard? The other asks. The corridors here are fairly wide, about 4 meters of space for the guards to cover, and the walls are made of the most expensive woods that could be found, tapestries like those in Gaten's bedroom hanging every few meters, made of silk. Each ceiling is roughly 6 meters high, meaning I would have no trouble hiding on the walls or on the ceiling, instead of in the shadows on the floor, either. A thud, the first says. Like something hitting the floor. I've been hearing it for a while, and it's been coming closer, he declares. You are one of those with the best hearing around here, outside those ninja. Think we should be more cautious? The second asks as they come to only 10 paces from me. Yes, you should have been, I say, stepping out. Damn it. You're one of those Black Ops people Zabuza was talking with Kisum about, aren't you? The first of the 2 asks, and I nod. It won't do any good to try and run or shout, will it? I nod again. Might as well try. Won't help anyone any. I am more than good enough to kill everyone in this mansion alerted or not, I tell them. I've been quietly killing every guard and member of the staff, but I can do loud if I have to, I say, and Kazushini's chains snare the second, who had turned to run, hauling him to me. You were better at your job than any of the others, if that's any condolence, I say. Thank you, it is, the second says before Kazushini's blades cut his throat. I silently set the body down, disentangling it from the chains. I agree. It's something to go to our graves with, at least, the first says, stepping forward and raising his blade to a guard position. I set Kazushini on the ground and draw a different weapon. Inteki Shakusetsu, Suzumabachi, I say, and move forward, casually deflecting his blade with my armored left hand, the short blade of my gauntlet, quickly double tapping his heart, and he crumbles to dust as the crest flashes for a moment. I move back and seal Suzumabachi, sheathing the sword as I pick up Kazushini again. You did your best, but it wasn't good enough, I say to the corpse of the guard whose throat I cut. Better luck next life. Maybe we'll meet in the Serite, I say as their ghosts take form over their bodies. A pair of Kanzam later, they're on their way. I still perform that duty, even if I am the killer of these men. I move on, my quiet slaughter continuing until I finish off everyone in the mansion, but the 3 enemy ninja. I quietly step into their room, sealing and sheathing Kazushini, and Zabuza stirs for a moment. Zabu-chan, I mock quietly, and he talks in his sleep. I draw Senbonzakura in preparation for my next move. Go jump off a cliff, kiss him, he snarls, and I laugh quietly. Huh, who is it? He asks and finds Senbonsakura at his throat as he wakes. I quietly reach into my robe and draw out the notebook with a list of accounts, ripping 3 pages from it with the information for 3 different accounts on them. All are with banks at the edge of the Land of Fire, less than a day's walk from here, accessible to anyone with the information so Gaten's thugs can get at it, and stuffed full of money. I drop one of the pages on Zabuza's chest, then move and drop one into the hands of Kisame and Haku. Kisame grabs his, clutching it tightly as if he senses the riches it will bring him. I take it you understand what that is? I ask as I move back to Zabuza. Our payment for being reasonable, staying asleep, and owing you a favor, he says. Correct, I respond. Are all 3 of you partial to joining the Bloodline Rebellion in Kiri, on the Bloodline side? I ask, and Zabuza nods in confirmation as he sees where I'm going with this. Yeah. All 3 of us plan to help fund it, bring money back to help in the fight, he says. Good. You now have the money. Go back and carry a message for me, I say, and Zabuza nods warily. You still owe me, of course, delivering the message is just on your way, right? I ask pointedly, and Zabuza nods again. Good. Konoha is prepared to offer covert support to the bloodlines. I hear there are surviving Kagaya among them, and that is a very useful bloodline. My team will arrive soon. I am Ichigo Yamamoto, and I am the only one authorized to deliver this message. If my name isn't mentioned in communications to the Hokage, all involvement will be denied, I say. We are to help and report on if we believe the bloodlines can win. If they can, monetary and military support will follow. In return, Kiri's new regime will ally with Konoha, and several bloodline users will be sent to Konoha to propagate their clans there. Am I clear? I ask, and Zabuza nods. Konoha is being fairly reasonable, given the risk we're taking, I think, and Zabuza nods again. Now, you'll make sure not to let this leak to Yagura, right? I ask, and he nods fervently. Yeah, I will be. This is the break the rebellion needs, he says eagerly. Official support from one of the other major powers is going to help a lot, he breathes, clearly seized by excitement over his dream about to be realized. The price is small enough, and you get something else out of it too, I think, he says thoughtfully. Yes, we do. We blood our new shinobi, give them a taste of war. They need that, given the way things are looking these days, I say, and Zabuza grins. Our Anbu will be gotten to where they should be, battle ready and prepared to fight. Given how there are rumors that Orochimaru has founded his own village near Konoha, they'll need the experience. Are you agreeable? I ask. Now you're talking my language. I'm agreeable to helping you out with getting them experience, he says. Excellent. We'll meet again, Zabuza, I say, and walk backwards out of the room, leaving the mansion with my self-assigned mission accomplished. I now see why Aizen took such in his manipulations. I just set things on the path I wanted with a few words, and the authority I was granted through Konoha's assumptions and the message Zabuza will deliver for me soon. I choke down a laugh, content with what has happened. As I leave the mansion, I see Naruto engaging a mob of nearly 200 bandits, the original staying at a distance while clones fight. I stretch the hand with Senbonsakura out, pointing the blade down. Bankai, I say, walking forward as the blade drops, ripples spreading from where it strikes the ground, immense blades rising in front of and behind me, an invisible wind causing my scarf and robes to flutter as moonlight halos me, cherry blossoms flying around me. Tire, Senbonsakura Kageashi, I say, and the blades dissolve, rushing forward to form a sphere around the conveniently concentrated bandits. Okay, Senbonsakura Kageashi, I say, and a moment later, only blood and dust remain of the bandits, who were fortunately drawn away from their tents and prisoners. The blossoms once more become a single blade as I seal Senbonsakura, and I move on as Naruto nods and moves to finish the last bandits and free their prisoners. Sasuke and Lee are similarly entangled, I find. You're going to die, ninja brat. One bandit howls at Lee. Their calculations are in error, Lee replies, and I frown slightly. You believe your quantity defeats my quality, but my flames of youth and my comrades shall make up the difference, he declares, nodding slightly to me. So he can speak, another bandit says. Your comrades are just as dead as you are, kid, he sneers. I think not, I say, and they whip around to face me as I draw a blade. Instead, 1/3 of your comrades are dead, Gatm is dead, your comrades in the mansion are dead, and you're next, I tell them with no small amount of satisfaction. You're lying. One accuses. I am not. Slice them to shreds, Shinzum, I order, and the Urumi takes on its true form, the blade flickering out, a dozen enemies exploding into a bloody mist a heartbeat later. Kill him. One shouts, and they rush me as I step forward, unhurried. My long, whip-like blade flickers almost lazily, blows being casually deflected. I move no more than necessary, blows missing me by a millimeter at most, often striking other bandits, given that they're trying to pile on top of me. Shinso snakes through their ranks, sometimes slicing throats, sometimes circling around me to block blows, sometimes dragging an enemy forward into others. My other hand, fingers extended, has sparks dancing around it as Byakurai lance out again and again, killing several bandits at a time. Lee watches from the top of the stone wall in awe. It was mostly destroyed by the explosive tags I planted while setting up my traps, but there's still enough for Lee to perch on with enough room to dodge stray projectiles. He recovers from the awe quickly however, and kunai start hissing forward, accompanied by shuriken, catching the enemy off guard and killing several before any turn back to him. Those that try to attack him in return are swiftly dispatched as he leaps down, his hand snapping their necks and shattering their ribsages with casual ease, crushing their hearts with each blow. He recovers his kunai and shuriken, and retreats as I actually begin to put some effort into the fight, my blade flickering, almost vanishing as I begin the deadly steps of Shinzam's dance, carving through the enemy ranks like a hot knife through soft butter, the last enemy dead less than 5 minutes after I begin my dance. Aid the prisoners, I command Lee, and he nods and moves to obey as I continue to finish off Sasuke's foes. He turns out to be facing a group of bandits apparently made up of failed graduates from some shinobi academy. I recognize him using Konoha's Taijutsu style and decide to make this little dance memorable. Suiton Sakamake, Nejabana, I say, and the crashing waves strike the foe. I move through them as the tempest through the unprepared land, immense waves erupting from Nejabana. I dance among the waves, both ends of the long trident-like weapon in my hands killing, the end of the shaft opening throats, the blade stabbing through hearts and slashing open torsos, even as the end of the shaft spills the guts of my enemies into the open air. The crashing waves catch the foe by surprise, several breathing in water or being crushed by the waves, before they adjust to my violent presence. Above us, the storm gathers, rain beginning to fall. Winds whip around me as I summon a hurricane, throwing the enemy back bodily from the force of the winds. Sasuke is disengaged and is watching with interest. He's too strong. Run. One calls, and a blade of water cuts him slightly, a drop of blood falling into the water. The sharks gotten kept in the cove by throwing broken slaves and incompetent underlings overboard are surging towards my little group as the ground we're fighting on floods, the remains of the wall that are still 4 meters high half submerged. I materialize Aim no Nuhoko and slam the shaft into the ground, stone walls rising along the lines of the perimeter traps and old wall, created from the water and separating the prisoners, who Sasuke apparently freed before attacking the bandits, and the other parts of the mansion's grounds from the surging waters. All of the enemy bandits are standing on the water now, and I match them with a simple use of Nejabana to harden the water below me. There is no running, I say as an immense, almost 8-meter long shark roars forth from the water and seizes the bleeding bandit, once an academy student who failed to prove himself worthy to become a shinobi like my students. The forming storm has stirred the sharks up, and in the cove, the empty ships are tossed by rising waves. Lightning crackles across the skies, the storm answering my call as I blur forward, either killing my foes or cutting them just enough to bleed, it makes no difference. The waters churn into a red froth as the sharks rip apart the bleeding bandits, all of whom are failed shinobi, apparently, and thus worthy of some effort and art being put into their deaths. The sharks avoid me. They're smart enough to know what I am. We're not going to run. One shrieks as he turns to try and do just that, apparently trying and failing to bolster his courage. My trident buries itself in his back as I stride forward, a full-fledged personal hurricane screaming around me. He falls, and the trident dissolves into water, reforming in my right hand as I materialize Aim no Nuhoko once more. Run, I hiss, and the remaining bandits panic, trying to run. There are still several hundred surviving, and there are still plenty of sharks. My spear and trident flash as I make sport of hunting the fleeing enemies, keeping them coiled on the water, as I use Aim no Nuhoko to create small islands for them to rest on, taking an hour or so to hunt them down. Finally, at about 3 in morning, the last is dead and the sharks are departing. I salute those who helped me with the cleanup of this particular battlefield and look at the mansion. Zabuza, Kisame, and Haku are on the roof, and Kisame is grinning and saluting the sharks with his sword. I notice my genin on the earth walls I created earlier and sense the freed prisoners just outside the walls, not far from them. Nice work Yamamoto. Kisame calls. I think we'll get along well. He continues, and I nod, removing my helm and matching his grin, saluting him with Nejabana. Not afraid to get your hands dirty, and you really made those kills into an art form. You're definitely going to be fun to fight alongside, should I get the chance, he finishes, and I nod in respect, which he returns. Any comments, genin? I ask them, replacing my helm. All three shake their heads, silently declining the chance to ask about the abilities I used to finish their foes off. They rise and leap down to join the prisoners as I move out to those ships I allowed to survive the storm, which still have people on them. I quietly kill their crews, freeing the prisoners and bringing them onto land. That was awesome, Tachm, Naruto says quietly as the two groups of prisoners are brought together for the walk to Wave. One question though. How's Wave supposed to feed all these people? He asks, and I smile slightly as I get out one of the two notebooks detailing Gatton's ships and their locations, showing him one of the pages. Several of Gatton's ships are currently loaded with food and just off the shore from Wave. I think it might be prudent for them to have a little change in who is currently acting as captain, I quietly suggest, and Naruto nods, forming clones who leap into the trees, racing ahead of us. Now, let's arrange to vanish once we get some sleep. Better for no one outside Tazuna and these people to know too much about us, yes? I ask. Black Ops has a reputation we can use, and we've used it here to get Zabuza to be reasonable, reinforcing it with the slaughter, but no need for us to be too well known outside Konoha quite yet. So, we're going to deliver them, get a couple hours of sleep, then return home, sound good? I ask Naruto, and he nods. We'll be back in the area soon though, I tell him. Hiding alongside Kisum. He figures out, and I nod, proud of his ability to figure such things out. The Bloodline Rebellion, right? Konoha has been committed by you, hasn't it, sensei? I nod again, and he grins. Experience for our soldiers. Orochimaru is thought to be building a ninja village after all, and he's no friend of Konoha, Naruto figures out. Very good. Now let Sasuke and Lee figure it out for themselves, I order, and he nods. This has been a good day's work, and we even got an unexpected bonus or two out of it. I grin behind my helm. Konoha might want peace, but war is coming, and I will prepare it. After all, I can hardly let my pupils be caught napping when war comes, now can. Back so soon? Izumo asks as we leap down from the trees, landing in front of the gates. Unhindered by the weight of civilian cargo, the need to conserve chakra for possible combat en route, or the need for a forward scout to have time to do their work properly, we made excellent time back to Konoha, settling in at a stately cruising speed of a mere 80 kilometers an hour. Returning to Konoha within a mere 4.5 hours, arriving precisely at noon. Hinata, I had to carry myself, but that didn't slow me appreciably. I am still far faster than my genin, and could have doubled that speed with ease. Yeah, turned out to be good that we were the ones who went. Ended with us taking out Gatten for hiring missing ninja to attack us, beating Kisum Hoshigaki and Zabuza Mamachi, and then exterminating several thousand bandits, I say in a level tone. Now that sounds interesting. Care to share the story over a drink later? Izumo asks, and I nod after a moment's consideration. Sure. Client decided we had done our job after that was done. No other real threat to his work after that, and he appreciated the realities of our work, which were that my team was needed here, I say. Black Ops work? Katetsu asks. Every ninja knows now. But none of the civilians outside those people at Ichiraku's do. Haruno was taken into custody and a seal placed on her to block those memories. Yamanaka was instructed very firmly on the consequences of telling anyone, and most Konoha shinobi are told who our Black Ops people are as a matter of course. Most of us have only the highest respect for your work, sir. Your money is no good in Konoha bars now. You're not buying your own drinks, not when another shinobi is around. Black Ops gets too much respect for that from those who know the realities of what you do, he explains, looking at my genin. You 3 genin are a credit to your training and your village. If you decide to get drunk, as you can legally do, the same thing applies to you. I see, Naruto says. No civilians seem to recognize him now that he's covered up the whisker marks that show him to be a demon host and dyed his hair, which will probably prove fortunate for him. He's apparently been overcharged for a long time now, and that should stop that from happening. And if it doesn't, I'll be having a quiet word with some civilians. I hope that only extends to drinks and not to everything. I don't want to have others paying my way. Paying my tab, yes. Paying for my food and clothes, no, he says. Konoha pays for food and shinobi clothing, as well as weapons. Other shinobi pay for your drinks, icha, that kind of stuff, the little things. You still pay for things like gambling and your housing, if you don't stay in the shinobi housing offered to everyone, or in clan housing, should you have a clan, Izumo explains. Shinobi housing has all the necessities, quite nice really. You get to personalize its security. Some of the more paranoid ninja, your breed, fellow Black Ops, set up killing fields that will take out anything short of an army, in their apartments, he explains, and Naruto looks thoughtful, as do Lee and Sasuke. We both live there. Everything's paid for on the housing, you just have to be an active shinobi to qualify. Retired shinobi also live there, assuming honorable retirement or injuries. Nice place for our kind, all told. Good company, near some good bars, not too far from the red light district if you're looking for company for the night, and near the gambling dens. Keeps crime down to have shinobi near the red light district, which tended to be the worst before the housing was moved there. Honestly, moving there isn't too bad. not as comfortable as clan housing, but probably more secure, definitely more interesting, and a lot more comfortable than civilian housing. Anyone wants to cause trouble there, they'll be dealing with a majority of Konoha's shinobi force. About a quarter of the force uses housing with their own clan, should they have one, the rest either have clans too small for shinobi housing of their own, are civilians, or decided not to use their clan's housing, he tells them. I see. Are there Uchiha or Hokage there? Sasuke asks, and Izumo nods. Most of the branch house shinobi of the Hokage, and no few of the Uchiha shinobi. The Hokage hate being in their clan compound, and the Uchiha live there because they don't feel like staying within the walls of their compound, now that they aren't being forced to, Katetsu replies. The main house Hokage stay out, as the last one who did accidentally, wandered into the apartment of a Black Ops shinobi who wasn't there and forced entry. It's bad enough when they're there and let you in. When they aren't, or when you force entry, it's damn near suicide to enter their apartments. Combine both, and that Hokage was lucky to survive the 5 seconds he did before something got through his katen, Izumo explains. We sympathize with the branch house a lot more than we do with the main branch. We don't want them coming into our sanctuary and trying anything. The list of main house members that can set so much as 1 foot into the official shinobi housing without being steered to a meeting with an irritated Black Ops shinobi is short, 1 entry only, and she's here with you, he says, and Hinata blushes as we look at her. I didn't even know that housing existed, Naruto says, and Lee nods in agreement. All shinobi are required to have a Konoha residence and spend at least 3 months a year there, so you might want to move in, Izumo suggests. Won't take more than a day to do so. You have enough time to move in today if you want, in fact, he suggests. If we have to be inside the walls, I suppose that doesn't sound like a bad idea. We can easily jog out to the training grounds each morning, keep the house there maintained, and have us stay there in rotations, open the training course to other Black Ops members, Sasuke suggests. Sounds good, Lee approves, and the decision is made. I suppose I might as well move there as well. We have a report to make, I say, and my genin nod, bloodthirsty grins on their faces. All of them figured out what we are going to be doing soon, and are looking forward to the chance to test their capabilities in true war. I have 2 weeks to prepare Hinata, though she'll only be a scouting element for a while at least, and thus not needing the same level of physical ability as the others, before we move to Kiri to begin operations, and I can probably get her up to par using the same training course I did for the others fairly easily in a month or so, and Black Ops work will swiftly polish the rough edges. So long as I keep her alive to learn her lessons. Hi, Teichm, my genin reply, and we move into Konoha proper, Hinata staying by my side as the other 3 fan out, Yuichiro leaping from my shoulder and following behind me. She's actually being fairly serious these days, and I think this mission will be good for her. She's starting to show a bit of growth at least, and if things go right, she'll be a fairly capable lieutenant once we return to the Sirte. I know she has Shikai, I can sense it, it's just that she isn't grown enough to really use it, apparently. I return to considering the growth of the other female I'm responsible for and mentally query Kami's mission for options I have available without requiring that particular Shikai constantly active. None of the items drawn from the treasury are Zanpakuto, though they have the potential to become such if I really want them to, and I can draw at least some of them from the treasury without requiring Shikai to be active longer than it takes to call them. A permanent Shikai would reveal more than I'd like about my power to some people, so my options are limited. What I have available is an artifact allowing the transfer of specified knowledge, an elixir to speed physical development without ill effect, and an item which takes 1 month after it stops being used to recharge, but when used, allows those within its small bubble to experience up to 1 month of time at a rate of 2 to 1, thus compressing a month of work into 2 weeks. I can't get more than that without activating Shikai longer than I'd like though. My Kiden clones fortunately are perfectly functioning copies that can take damage and sustain themselves for extended periods, so I decide to leave Hinata with 1 and use those items to assist, transferring the memories of the theory and practical knowledge from my other 3 students, while the elixir and time compression artifact will be used to get her up to par physically. I don't like doing it, but if I want her ready in time, this kind of shortcut is my only option. So, any bets on the Hokage's reaction? Naruto asks, and the other 2 shake their heads. No sucker bets, Naruto, Sasuke says. And when are you going to start using the Uchiha name as you should? He asks, and Naruto grimaces as he reveals a secret to his team that he had been hiding from all but me. Only the Hokage knew before this. They know about the Kikbi, but not about this, a far more minor thing. Well, probably more minor. He closes his eyes, and when he turns to look at Sasuke and Lee, now bunched together, Sharingan blazes forth. I see, is Sasuke's only reaction. How? Madara. He bore a single child, a daughter, by an Uzumaki woman when he was young, not realizing her clan. They came together, and she bore him a daughter. However, she died shortly afterwards defending Madara from an ambush by Senju, who had been following her, led by Tobirama, cementing Madara's hatred for him. Madara was practically Hashirama's best friend, compared to how much he hated Tobirama, especially after Tobirama tried to kill his daughter for her tainted blood, leaving Madara only one option. He had developed his Mangekyou Sharingan the moment the woman he loved died. It had an ability that allowed him to displace her in time, setting her in the Uzumaki clan stronghold many years later, after the wars had ended. He sent a scroll with her explaining his actions, and pleaded with his daughter for her forgiveness. "That daughter was my mother," Naruto says. Later, shortly before his death, Izuna, Madara's brother, sired a child upon my great-grandmother, whose clan I was not told when the Hokage explained this to me. Apparently, the Hokage regards my heritage as some great secret. I have a fairly good guess though, considering the physical similarities I once had, and I independently confirmed the family history the Hokage gave me. When I was 6, one of the yearly mobs mustered to destroy the demon caused me to awaken my Sharingan. Less than a year after I awakened the Sharingan, my best friend at the time, a temporary instructor at the academy who had tried to help me learn despite the sabotage of the other teachers, now confirmed, died on a mission. I developed the Mangekyou myself. At my next birthday, the mob mustered that year cut out my eyes. My regenerative ability, granted by the Kikbi, restored them as the Iron no Mangekyou Sharingan, Naruto explains, his eyes changing once more as Naruto's chakra flares, his eyes closing. "I see," Sasuke says, his voice cold and deadly. "The members of those mobs will need to be identified," he says. "The Hokage has records on every last one of them, and I have acquired a copy," Naruto answers in a similar tone. "I hide behind the name Uzumaki because I am unsure of my reception by the Uchiha. I am Madara's own grandson, and his blood is strong indeed," Naruto says as he opens his eyes. The tomo of the Sharingan have become circles, and the ring connecting them has thickened, becoming similar to pictures of Madara's Mangekyou. 6 circles are upon the ring, spaced evenly, and a black 6-pointed star touches each circle with one of its points, the center of the star precisely at the center of his eye, resembling a straightened 6-pointed version of Itachi's Mangekyou or perhaps Izuna's Mangekyou with 6 neuro points, as the center of the star is a broad black circle with a red dot in the middle. As you can see, my Iron no Mangekyou Sharingan bears a strong resemblance to the Mangekyou of my forebears, with it simply having doubled the points of the star and the number of circles when it advanced from Mangekyou, he explains. "You're Uchiha then," Sasuke decrees imperiously. "So use your correct name, hold your head high, and bear your Sharingan with pride," he orders, and Naruto reluctantly nods. "Very well, brother," he says, and Sasuke smiles as Naruto raises his head, displaying blazing Iron no Mangekyou Sharingan. The first civilian to see it stumbles back in shock, gasping. Naruto's hairstyle now resembles Madara at least, and his hair color is now more similar to that of his Uzumaki mother than his Namikaze father. If he maintains his Iron no Mangekyou Sharingan and orange-red hair color, if he returns to blonde hair and blue eyes for a mission, no one will recognize him if he's careful. Those two traits are very distinctive, after all. The lines of his face, now sharper, also bear a resemblance to both Madara and Izuna if one looks carefully. Also, there is the even more carefully hidden resemblance to his other great-grandfather, Hashirama. After all, Hashirama had more than one child, and one of them, a son, left Konoha and the ninja life behind, marrying a Namikaze, coincidentally Naruto's grandmother. Naruto has no suspicion, but I have confirmed his reported heritage thrice over, through multiple independent sources, and have confirmed the presence of the Mokuton abilities in strength comparable to Hashirama. "Keep quiet unless you want civilians to start talking," I order. "Naruto, keep your Iron no Mangekyou Sharingan going at all times outside your rooms. It makes a good distinctive trait to conceal when going into deep cover," I explain. Naruto is perfect for authority. If I can maneuver things so he becomes Anbu commander, eventually Hokage, then things will be far easier. His bloodline is respected outside the village, he has it in a pure powerful strain of it, and the power of Hashirama, plus success in Anbu, will clear stigma from his heritage as Madara's grandson and the host of the Kikbi, which I intend to talk with soon. I think we'll have an interesting conversation. If he becomes Hokage, Konoha will become the military titan that is necessary to keep this world stable when this continent encounters the outside world, which is currently a massive problem in and of itself. Behind the shinobi in terms of development, but the other lands have their own powers, even though the kami very much rule this world. The shinobi, when guns and advanced technology looked to be invented here, aggressively suppressed it, seeing how such things could cause trouble down the road. One of the few examples of foresight and agreement among all shinobi on a single subject. "Hi, Taichi," Naruto says, and shortly afterwards, we arrive at the Hokage Tower. His secretary pales as I approach and immediately sends us into Hiruzen Sarutobi's office, disrupting a meeting with Asuma and his team. Team 7, report, the Hokage commands as we form up in front of his desk. Team 10 will maintain any secrets necessary. Good. We dealt with this mission. Gadam turned out to be trying to kill our client. He had a private bandit army and a few missing ninja from Kiri, supporters of the bloodlines seeking funds for the rebellion, I say. I see. They have been dealt with and his assets seized, I trust. Hiruzen asks. Of course. The prisoners of the bandits are currently resident in Wave, though we spent longer there than I would have liked once the operation was complete and Tazuna released us. The bandits are dead and the ninja were paid off and sent to the bloodline users with a message, I tell him, and Hiruzen closes his eyes for a moment. I think I can guess at that message, but I might as well hear it, he replies. Very well. My team moves in 2 weeks to begin operations in Kiri. If we decide the bloodline rebels have a better than 70% chance of victory with minor official support, military and monetary support from Konoha will follow. In return, Konoha will gain members from Kiri bloodline clans who start their clans here, among them the Kagaya, as I confirm the presence of survivors of that clan among the rebels. Also, Kiri allies with Konoha. Minor risk for high reward, among it the blooding of Genin and the rust being removed from the edges of the Anbu, Chinin, and Jinin. Valuable rewards in that alone, considering the rumors of what Orochimaru is up to, I say. I agree with the decision. You may have unilaterally committed us, and given who you truly are, Izanagi-sama, I cannot argue, the decision is sound in itself. There is only minor risk, and in trade we receive an immense reward indeed, Hiruzen says. Good. I'd like Naruto to lead the main offensive when it comes down to dealing with Yagura. We're going to work on taming the Kikbi, which is sealed within him, and putting it back into one piece instead of 2 split parts. 2 bij clashing will give sharp contrast, Naruto against Yagura. Leading the assault, planning it, will give him respect from the ninja of the village, and experience as a commander. And, of course, there are the tiny factors that displaying him prominently now, with one specific appearance, will make it hard to find him when he vanishes on Black Ops duty, I continue. All very good reasons. Plus, it will probably bring out all of Naruto's heritage, which you probably know about by now, and set him on the path to being Anbu commander and eventually Hokage, who will then turn Konoha into something that can deal with any expansion the world outside the elemental countries tries, correct? Hiruzen reasons, and I nod in confirmation. Correct. And there are other factors, of course, I tell him. I expected that. When dealing with you, there are always multiple benefits for your plans. You have a desirable future, which benefits Konoha apparently, and probably benefits you somehow, even if I can't figure out precisely how, Hiruzen growls. True. I'm the one with the power here. But you will come out of this ahead, so sit back, follow my instructions, and let the inevitable happen. I'll even make sure nothing disturbs my plans in person, I tell him. This already returned Izanami to me, a precious thing in and of itself. Now, what I get out of the next part of my plans is still a secret of mine, but it will tie up some loose ends for you. What's this about Naruto's heritage? Ino asks, apparently sensing gossip. Spread this, and only this, Genin Yamanaka, I instruct, and she nods. Upon pain of death should you disobey this order, for the rest of the knowledge is privileged until this operation is actually carried out. Evidence will be provided and is also already in place without needing to be highlighted or planted to confirm independently. Naruto Uchiha is the grandson of Madara Uchiha, the great-grandson of Izuna Uchiha, and the great-grandson of Hashirama Senju, I tell her. He possesses Mokuton and the Sharingan, the former potent but untrained. I have confirmed that myself, as have the Anbu. I trust you understand the meaning of this news. I do, Izanagi-sama, she answers. There's no way Naruto won't become Hokage with that kind of lineage. Madara and Izuna were strong, everyone knows that. Naruto is about to get the respect of the other ninja, probably an endorsement from Sandaime-sama as an eventual successor, and his Mokuton and descent from Hashirama makes it inevitable. Exactly, I answer. So that is what will eventually happen, Teichm? Naruto asks, adjusting to the new reality of things. I nod in confirmation, and he looks thoughtful. It will benefit Konoha more than any other choice. I nod again, and he accepts his fate. Very well. Good. Now, there is work to be done. Also, I take it the Kunoichi who showed an interest in me have cooled down a bit, recognizing the difference between us. I ask, and Hiruzen nods in confirmation. Yes. I spoke with them, as requested, and they recognized the vast gap between mortals and immortals, especially after Izanami-sama spoke with them. I anticipate demigod children being born if you are agreeable, but no further than that. They will take what they can get from any relationship between you and them, so as to avoid entanglements that will only hurt both parties, he tells me. I see. Thank you for getting them to be reasonable so quickly, I say. The implications of mortality hit me not long ago, just before my team left, and I requested that the Hokage make sure any Kunoichi interested in me knew what they were getting into. They will age and die, and I will remain young and eternal. I might sire half Shinigami children, but that is actually fairly common for Shinigami in deep cover deployments, and a watch is set over them. In fact, it's expected that I'll leave a few children behind here, given my irritating ability to attract women and the length of my deployment. Lending in usually involves starting some kind of family on long-term deployments after all, and Yamajiji acted as if he was expecting me to sire a few hundred children at least on this mission. I'll avoid siring that many for certain, but a few children are probably inevitable. I understand aging. You have to see those mortals you interact with age and die as you do not, and I am glad to assist. Here is an answers. All of us understand the reality of things now. He finishes his part of this meeting in a weary tone. Good, I reply somewhat sadly. Mortality is both a blessing and a curse. You mortals are creative, yes. But you burn with creativity for such a short time. I sorrow for the day my students pass, but I will try and get the most use possible out of them first, I say. Thank you, Teichin, Lee says. All we ask is to be of use. If your manipulations can give us that, we request that you do whatever you must, he tells me, understanding my position. Thank you, Lee, Sasuke, Naruto. I have tried to be honorable when I can be, but sometimes honor can't be afforded, and you have to do things you don't like, I tell them, all three nodding. Sasuke, you will get your revenge. But you won't see Iwa as a burning ruin. No, there are those who gave the orders, and they will be your targets, I tell him. Fair enough, Sasuke says, shrugging. I'll take what I can get. Good. Konoha Black Ops, Team 7, we're moving into official shinobi housing. Get your apartments turned into proper killing fields, including you Hinata. You're Black Ops now, and even though you'll be training independently with me for the next 2 weeks, you're still one of us, no matter how untrained you are, I tell her, and she smiles brightly. Thank you sensei, she says. She is thankful for being called one of us, not the outsider she's always been. You're in for torture with your training. Thank me once that's done, I instruct. Now the Hokage doesn't have time to waste, so let's go, I say, getting out a scroll and passing it to Ino, who swiftly makes it vanish. I'll spread the information as instructed, sir, she says. Gossip moves fast, and I have a stranglehold on the gossip network now that Sakura is out of commission in the right circles to control gossip moving, she informs me. Good. Fail at your peril. Succeed, and I'll put a few words in the right ears for you, I say, offering her risk and reward. Now you're talking my language, she answers. I am supposed to be an intelligence officer's daughter. I've realized that, and I'll fulfill my duty, sir, she says, and I nod in satisfaction. Do this right, and I might have other work for you in counterintelligence, I say, and Ino looks shocked for a moment. Got it, she says, her smile turning predatory. Counterintelligence work, the feeding of false information to spies and the control of deep cover agents, is a much desired posting in T&I. She'll receive a major boost to her career if she gets work in that part of Anbu, even if it is only a single assignment. I'll do this by the book, everything done right and tweaked as needed. Very well, I answer, following my genin out of the room. Good luck. Time skip. 2 weeks later. Time to get moving, I say as my team musters at the gate, then my plans are interrupted by someone calling Hinata's name. All 4 of my team and myself turns to look, and a Haika branch house member, distinctive by the standard light brown jacket, black pants and headband over the cage bird seal, is seen to be running towards us. Hinata-sama, he says the moment he arrives. Hiashi-sama summons you back to the compound immediately for training, he tells her, and I glare. He told me to inform you that you are expected to spend twice the time you did training with someone he did not approve as your instructor learning the proper fighting style of the clan. My esteemed father can go jump off a cliff, preferably while bleeding, and fall into shark-infested waters, Hinata replies bluntly, and I grin behind my helm, as I have taken to wearing full armor at all times while in Konoha. And he may shove his idea of training where the sun doesn't shine, however much he thinks the sun shines out of that particular orifice, she continues, and Naruto starts laughing. Hinata-sama the messenger begins warily. You may tell him that, in those words precisely, and accredit it to me. I am a Kunoichi of the Konoha Black Operations Division, and I am about to be deployed on a mission vital to the future security of the Land of Fire's coastal regions. Interference from my father in this deployment will constitute treason under Konoha's shinobi regulations, and I will not be hesitant to make that charge and bring it to the Hokage himself, or even to the daimon should it be necessary, to see that the full penalties of that charge are carried out. Teichin, are you prepared to stand as a witness to the receipt of these illegal orders from my clan head? Hinata asks. Hi, I reply, perfectly happy to see Hiashi, who tried to pull rank on me several times already, apparently ignoring that I can blast him from existence at a whim, brought down several pegs. The messenger's face is pale, and he staggers back as if he does not recognize Hinata. In fact, I will bring the charges myself, and it will be done immediately. Even the attempt to interfere counts as treason, and I see you are holding a message from Hiashi-san, presumably giving his orders in writing, which in other circumstances would be legal orders to a clan member, but which in these circumstances are a death penalty for the one who wrote them, I say in satisfaction. I hope Hiashi is prepared for a visit to the executioner. At least Hinata already has a successor in place just in case things go poorly for her, I say. Yes sir, the messenger replies. We can spare a few hours to see to this episode. We were scheduled to set out at 2 in the afternoon and at 6 in the morning, I reason. Now, let's go to the compound and formally deliver the charge. Izumo carried the message to the Hokage that he is required at the Hokage compound for an investigation into a formal charge of interference with a black operation vital to Konoha security, which thus constitutes a charge of high treason, I instruct, and Izumo nods in shock, finding his senses a moment later and vanishing in a swirl of leaves. Kitetsu, seal the gates. We cannot afford an attempt to escape justice, I order. Hi, Teichm, Kitetsu says. The full iron force of the law is about to descend on the Hokage clan. Getting hammered by their clan head being executed on justified treason charges is going to be devastating for them, no doubt. But since the Hokage has signed and sealed the Black Operations assignment that will, if the rebellion is judged to have a chance at success, also constitute a declaration of war against Yugura's regime, this is interference with operations vital to Konoha's security in time of war. While it would not be high treason in time of peace, and Hiashi would likely avoid a visit to the executioner, in wartime this charge is high treason and punished accordingly. Hinata-sama, are you sure about this charge? The messenger asks warily. I am the one bringing it now, I believe, I say. I am the one whose assignment is being interfered with in potential time of war, after all, I tell him, and he goes so pale that I can very nearly see through his skin. Yes sir, he replies, and raises a shaking hand with a scroll in it, sealed and signed by Hiashi, I find when I read it over. Written orders knowingly pulling her from a black operation, apparently. Hiashi is a dead man walking. I formally give you all relevant evidence in my possession, and hereby, as is required of me, swear to testify fully and truly if called, he says with the tone of a man walking to his doom. The Hokage main branch will try and take their diss out on him for this, blaming him for Hiashi's idiocy. Thank you, I say, moving to lead my team towards the Hokage compound. Hinata is flashing hand signals to me, conveying her desire to try and leave Hiashi out, since she still cares for him as her father. I prioritized learning hand signals myself while training with the Anbu for 3 months and made that same training priority for her. Being able to communicate without words is vital for any Black Ops member, after all. In fact, it's a vital skill for any ninja, even if Konoha's shinobi are normally not taught their signaling system until they're Chunin, and roughly half the Chunin in Konoha service don't have a good grasp of the signaling system. Black Ops needs it though, so I made sure I knew the signals within a week of starting my team's training, and made sure they knew it within a week after that. I make my decision and signal that such an opening cannot be left. This kind of affront to the discipline Konoha is very shortly going to need cannot be allowed, for anyone. No, Hiashi is in for the long drop and a meeting with an executioner, not a chance at survival. It's my duty, sir, the Hokage replies firmly. He will hopefully be able to maintain that as his excuse. Good shinobi don't grow on trees, after all. Shortly after the exchange is completed, we have arrived at the Hokage compound and are met by the Hokage with his advisors and Dan's Mento, along with several other shinobi clan heads. We are allowed in immediately, without the branch house guards even questioning our purpose, and shown to where Hiashi is meeting with his daughter and the main house elders. Why did you bring your team with you, Hinata? To witness your disgrace? Hiashi asks. We came to deal with your illegal actions and orders, Hiashi Hokage, I reply. What illegal orders? He asks, smirking. The charges of a peasant such as yourself will not be able to severely affect a clan head, so if you do not wish the Hokage clan to bring influence to bear against you, I suggest you back down, Yamamoto. The illegal orders that recall a shinobi of the Black Operations Division from a deployment in time of war. All conversation within this room is declared privileged, on pain of death for all who spread it and hear it, I proclaim in response, and all in the room nod. The Black Operation assigned is to assist the Kiri bloodline rebellion in return for the Haimton, Shikatsunyaku, Imton, Futon, and Ranton bloodlines, having bearers transferred to Konoha to grant us possession of those bloodlines, amongst others, security for our coastal regions in the form of an alliance, removing the chance of Kiri raiding our coastlines. Which it could very well do and has done before in wartime, cutting the civilian structure supporting this village and the military of the Land of Fire apart, and should the rebellion prove to have a high probability of victory, the mission scroll doubles as a declaration of open support and war against Yugura's regime. The moment that scroll was signed and sealed, Konoha was at war, and your orders recalling a Black Ops shinobi from an operation associated with that mission, in wartime, is high treason. And you, in your own writing, say you knew you were recalling her from a black operation. Only one penalty exists for high treason knowingly committed in time of war, I say, and Hiashi goes pale. The highest level of military law is invoked, and there is now no way for Hiashi to avoid the penalties. The reason for classification of recall of a Black Ops shinobi or kunoichi from a mission from anyone less than the Hokage as high treason is simple. Such recall may compromise the mission, thus resulting in possible severe penalties for Konoha due to the failure of a Black Ops assignment. You have given such a recall order to one of my team, Hiashi. So, can anyone tell me what I am now legally justified and required to demand? I request, my face sober as I remove my helm. Hiashi's head on a pike, mounted outside the Konoha gates, Itachi says. And the immediate installment of his successor and that successor retracting those illegal orders, he continues, and I nod as I present the scroll to the Hokage. Did you write this scroll and seal it as coming from you, Hiashi? The Hokage asks a few minutes later, and he looks old and weary. Hiashi looks at the scroll and proves my evaluation of him. He may be arrogant, high-handed, and barely bright enough to find his own rear end with both hands, a map, and printed instructions, at least when dealing with his older daughter, but he isn't a coward. I did, he replies, standing up with head held high and back straight. And you recognize the charges brought against you as valid, as indeed they are, with the original charge being brought by Hinata Hyuga and supported by Ichigo Yamamoto? The Hokage asks. Knowing the consequences if you do indeed recognize that validity. I recognize the charges as valid, fully recognizing the consequences, Hiashi says. I must admit, I had not expected Hinata would have the spine to bring such charges against me. Apparently, black operations training has been good for her, and in my last action as her clan head and father, I fully approve of her training as a black operations kunoichi, name her my successor, with the provision that Hanabi is her heir, and also personally approve of her reaction to my orders. I had anticipated obedience, and I find that she has found her courage at last, bringing justified charges against me in defiance of all my previous experience with her. Her initial response to the orders was to tell your messenger to tell you to go jump off a cliff, while bleeding, into shark-infested waters, right after you shoved your orders where the sun doesn't shine, no matter how much you think it does, I say with some satisfaction, and Hiashi actually laughs, to my surprise, a short bark of humor. Yes, Black Ops has been good for her. That sounds very much like her mother, Hiashi muses. Anbu, take the prisoner to Anbu headquarters, where he will be held on unspecified charges until open support for the rebellion is declared, after which his head will decorate a pike, the Hokage orders. Hi, Hokage-sama, two of the Anbu who accompanied the Hokage as guards reply, moving forward and shackling Hiashi, then applying chakra and bloodline restraint seals. Ruthless. Touchy as a shaved bear. Powerful and with an excellent vision of how events are going to turn out from the scraps of information available. You are an ideal shinobi, Ichigo Yamamoto, Danzo says. So far, all who have crossed you have suffered, using the authority they rely on for their power, the authority of Konoha, to crush them utterly. And you have proved able to pass on similar competence to your subordinates, given what I have seen when observing their actions. You play the shinobi very well, but I believe everyone in this room knows precisely who you truly are, Izanagi no Mikoto, he says, and I summon Aim no Nuhoko in reply to Danzo's words. I request, if it would not seem impertinent, to know what you get from the entire situation you are creating. I receive several things, some in terms that stretch beyond human lifetimes, some in terms more immediate, I reply, deciding to at least partially humor him. The first is Izanami's return to life, of course. That is no small thing in and of itself, and well worth my efforts. The second is a more even balance of life and death. I have some small responsibility for that area, and thus I have a balance to maintain, which has been tipping in the favor of death, which is undesirable, shall I say. Third, the world isn't confined to one country, Danzo, I say, and he nods. I do not desire for a balance that has been carefully maintained to be disturbed by expansionist ambitions of other countries to be realized in the form of them conquering a small, nearly defenseless country for their own empire. I see. And an alliance, say between all five great nations, with Kumo, Konoha and Suna providing the first line of defense, Kiri disrupting enemy maritime supply lines, and Iwa giving us a strategic reserve, would be ideal. Especially if it came about that the daemon ceded authority to the shinobi powers, as we would be the ideal choice to disrupt the actions of a larger military machine, so their armies could pick it apart piece by piece, possibly expanding the reach of our nations. Dan's masks, and I nod. You are pretty much correct in how I want things to go. There's also an element of revenge, as a good few of those potential aggressors have forgotten to pay proper respect to certain beings, who shall remain unnamed, I tell him. Naturally, Danzo says, and we both smile the smile of a predator. Of course you have other motivations and get other benefits though, but I won't try and pry into them. After all, I have the sense to avoid assuming that just because you try to keep a low profile that you won't use your authority, he figures out, and I nod. I am at your service if you need someone to manage the necessary interventions to keep some parts of your plans running smoothly. I do still have influence in certain circles, he tells me. I think I'll take you up on that. Your support will be very helpful in securing the roots of Konoha more firmly, I say, and the Hokage nods in resignation. My intended message has been passed on to him. Now, I believe there is a mission my team should be getting around to beginning, or was that a hallucination? I ask, and the Hokage shakes his head. No, it is very real. Good luck, he says, and my team leaves quietly, slipping into the shadows as we go. Konoha's gates will be reopened shortly, in time for your departure, the Hokage says as we go, leaving a shocked Hokage clan behind. Time skip. 1 week later. Konoha Black Operations, Team 7, reporting, I say as I slip into the tent of Mei Terumi, the apparent leader of the rebellion. Several others are within the tent, a full war council, including Kamimaro Kagaya, the leader of the Kagaya survivors, Kisame, and Zabuza. My team follows me, all of us having slipped past the sentries and into the heart of this camp with little trouble, using the shadows rather than the mist. Kiri shinobi fight in the mist, and look for infiltrators moving through the mist, not the shadows, which are harder to find, as there is less light to cast them. Well, look what the shark dragged in, Kisame says with a very real appearance of delight. Ichigo Yamamoto, and his entire team. You caused merry chaos in Wave, taking Gatm out. The rebellion has been able to move in and turn it into a base of operations, fortunately, and we took some of his ships for our own uses as well. Let's hope you can do the same here in Kiri. By the way, did you note the bridge name? He asks, and I nod in some amusement. It leaked that I was the one who took out Gatm, and the citizens of Wave decided to attach my name to the bridge, now named the Grand Yamamoto Bridge, which proved rather irritating for me at first. Black Ops are not supposed to have their names attached to bridges, after all. But I suppose it's a small enough thing. We'll do our best to bring Yagura down. You have any information for us on the enemy? I ask. Yeah, Kisame answers. We have a lot of information. Yagura makes no effort to hide much from us, and we get a copy of his plans each month, sent by Yagura himself. We don't really have the numbers to do things the conventional way, fighting fortress by fortress, and he knows that. So he mocks us by giving us all the data we need to plan operations that we don't have the resources or people to carry out. The money that was brought back by Zabuza and myself has helped a lot in terms of resources, but in terms of people, we need support. A lot of clans decided to be stupid when the purges started, at least considering that civil war would follow. How so? I ask, wondering what Kisame would regard as stupid actions in this particular situation. They decided to have all the adults, all their genin, chiknin, and jinin stand and fight while the children were evacuated, a few of the ninja-trained clan members accompanying them. They destroyed their resources rather than send them with the children, leaving the new rebellion short on trained fighters, with a lot of brats to look after, and a lot less in terms of resources than we should have had. If they had done things intelligently, they would have taken their resources with them when they left, set traps in their comm, and left a small force that could escape after setting the traps there to greet Yagura's forces, Kisame says with disgust. They acted on reflex, without thinking for so much as 5 seconds, I take it. I ask. Yeah, that's about right, Kisame replies. My sympathies. Were those clan leaders as bad as some of Konoha's? I ask, then continue without waiting for reply. Konoha's support should make things easier if we can disrupt things a bit in Yagura's forces. You have the quality advantage, correct? I ask, and Kisame nods in confirmation. Thought so. You've been surviving long enough to start getting the children you were left with up to standard, after all, I reason, considering how long the civil war has been going on. How bad are some of Konoha's clan heads? Kamimaro asks warily, and I carefully consider my response. There are several options to describe them, all of which are valid. There's the old standby, too stupid to pour water out of a boot, that has the instructions on how to do so printed in large type on the heel, with helpful pictures. There's the other old standby, too stupid to find their rear end with both hands, a guide, a map, a year to do so, and directions on how to do so, I say, and Kamimaro winces, but I'm not done. Then there are some personal favorites, such as too stupid to realize that water is wet, too stupid to understand that they aren't invincible, and of course the best of them all, too stupid to find a whale covered in long-term flash tags in a dark room. I finish. How the hell do you get anything done? May asks, looking at me as if I accomplish a minor miracle every time I successfully complete a D rank with my team, and accomplish a miracle worthy of sainthood every time I actually, despite the very stupid civilian clan heads, almost all of whom fall under the descriptions I just gave, along with a few shinobi clan heads, actually get a C rank or higher done, a miracle on the order of turning a drop of water into an island paradise. Actually, I can perform that particular miracle, come to think of it, with a little help from the Aim no Nuhoko. The other Kiri shinobi are looking at me with similar awe. I won't say it isn't difficult and that I don't occasionally consider strangling every clan head like that, most of whom are civilians, and sadly able to give orders to ninja, thanks to the reforms of the Nidaime, the definition of occasionally being every time I'm in the same room as one of them, but I somehow constrain myself, I say. I'm not joking when I say that, I kept on getting summoned by the civilian council back during the original training period for my team and during the time when I was training Hinata. It took them about 15 seconds to put me in that kind of mood the first time I met the civilian clan heads, and they've only gotten better at it since. I consider it an exercise in patience and an example of the resilience of the human spirit, I say, totally serious, and receive equally serious nods. I get your point, May agrees. Yeah, some of those clan heads were that bad. Had nowhere near the same authority though. Sounds great. Now if only the Sandaime would repeal the Nidaime's reforms and turn Konoha into a proper military village, I'd be a lot happier. The civilians love their bureaucracy, sadly, and I spend more time either filling out or throwing into the nearest fire the forms they want me to fill out and quintuplicate than I do on missions, or at least I would if I hadn't reminded the Hokage why he has AIDS. They exist to fill out paperwork for us hard-working ninja who actually earn their payout doing Konoha's work, rather than sitting back and lounging around. He has nearly 300 shiknin who are there to fill out that paperwork for us, I say. And now they're doing their jobs at long last, with much protest about it? Zabuza asks. Correct. The Hokage at least has a lot of paper for the fire in his office. They send official protests about doing their job to him every single hour, on the hour, I inform them. They appear to have a fundamental objection to doing what they get paid for and expect to be paid for lounging around and making work for other ninja who actually have important things to do, I snarl, stalking across the tent angrily. I hate that kind of incompetence in any military organization, and it being so deep-rooted in a place where I may be stuck for 10 years sends me into a fury. I seriously think that we should maybe just execute or exile them all and get new ones sometimes. Couldn't agree with you more, Teichm, Naruto says. I've always been close to Sandaime-sama, am in fact practically his adopted grandson, and I've been seeing that incompetence for years now, he growls, rubbing his temples as if to stave off a headache. Shall we get to the military aspects of this mission and not the civilian idiocy in Konoha? I request. Myself and my team did some damage on the way here, destroyed some of Yagura's minor strongholds and storehouses, accounted for a few handfuls of Chiknin and a Jimnin or 3, but nothing really notable. I want to get my team some important targets, focus them where we can do damage, get the remaining rough edges off my trainees, and make ourselves able to send back a report that gets immediate reinforcement sent in 5 weeks from now, I tell them, and everyone in the tent nods, becoming totally serious. I would also like to be able to actually give the Hokage an idea of what we have to work with here, so let's start with what we have to work with, shall we? Sounds good, May replies. Ow, you mind starting? Not at all, a blue-haired man wearing an eye patch, earrings with paper tags on them, a blue-green robe, and a slashed Kiri headband responds, grabbing several papers which he starts to read, the briefing beginning. Well, we have our deployment plan, I say. The briefing on the enemy has finally finished, and I have already created my plans as how to best employ my team. We move in pairs, I'll go with Ichigo. Lee, you and Naruto will strike your targets together. Sasuke, you and Hinata get your targets, I say. We've moved to a tent of our own, made of simple black, light-absorbent fabric, and set up our trap network around it to keep eavesdroppers away while we prepare for our assignments. Targets, Teichm. If we're working together, shouldn't it be target? Hinata asks. No. You are moving in pairs so you can deal with any patrols you encounter. Once you reach the point where both sets of targets are within reach, you are to deploy separately. I'd like to have the pairs maintained, but we don't have the numbers, and none of the rebellion's ninja have your training for covert operations, I explain, grimacing at our lack of numbers. Now, there are 3 lines along which we are to strike. The rebellion is based on the easternmost island of the Land of Water, which is also the southernmost. For that reason, there are multiple points for us to strike at. the main island on which Kiri is based, and the two other major eastern islands that are nearby, of the three. Now, Naruto will be easiest for Yugura to find, so he will strike the nearest island along with Lee. Yugura's supply lines there are supposedly secure. I want that supposition proved wrong. Now, major storehouses are here, and here, I say, indicating points on a map of the island in question. Those storehouses hold the supplies for the major strongholds where Yugura has forces both of shinobi and other chakra, using forces here and here, I say, pointing out two other areas. Now, it's time for a lecture on samurai, warrior monks, and priests, I inform my students. Why is it time for such a lecture? Lee asks as he gets out his notebook. They will be important details in this campaign, as here we are dealing with conventional forces. There are 3 types of warrior monk, so we'll start with those. Now, all 3 types use chakra, but for very different purposes. The first type practices freeform elemental manipulation. Basically, they manipulate wind, water, fire, lightning, wood, lava, sand, whatever element they've decided to master. Now, these types of monks are fully in harmony with their elements. They are constantly surrounded by them. A fire monk will usually travel on a pillar air, heated to provide lift in a manner similar to how thermals aid hawks. They never travel on their own 2 feet or do anything for themselves. Everything is done by their elements, which they manipulate to replace their limbs. The creation of those elements is simple for them, given they have chakra and their reserves are vast. They never stop using chakra after all, even if only to keep themselves from touching the ground. Even those who use elements connected to the earth do not touch the ground. In close combat, they are effectively null. The problem is getting in close, as they can form shields of their elements if they have even the slightest warning on instinct alone. A flicker of killing intent, a crushed stick, the sound of breathing, these are sufficient warning, I say. Then how do we get in close? Sasuke snarls. Simple. Conceal yourselves. They do not understand Jinjutsu, how to conceal their true face. Simply make it look like you're wearing a Kiri headband and get in close. They don't interact with shinobi much, and Yugura shinobi are rotated on a weekly basis. That means they won't know the faces of the incoming or outgoing ninja. Or poison their food. They still eat and drink. Or, best of all, traps don't give off killing intent, and suitable traps are easily made. Or just be too fast for them to react. Lee as if he takes off his weights, and the rest of you would only need to open the first gate to match that, something all of you can do with only minor exertion, given the condition you're in, I tell them. And Sasuke smacks himself in the forehead at not thinking of that. I am an idiot for not thinking like the Black Ops shinobi I'm supposed to be, he snarls. Of course traps are the answer. It is only obvious when you consider things from the lens of the shadows, I say. You are still learning, Sasuke. Honestly, most shinobi don't learn about this before attaining Chunin rank, I tell him. That makes me feel a bit better, at least. Now what about the others? Sasuke asks attentively. The second type specializes in Kenjutsu, or sealing. They conceptualize and create seals to fit their situation, reshaping the field as necessary. All can create seals from pure chakra if need be, and are highly aware. Don't think they'll be as easy to catch unawares as their elemental counterparts. Seals can take the form of long-term traps awaiting activation, a lot of seals do in fact, and they know how to keep from being caught unawares. However, Naruto has one advantage against them. They cannot attack anyone of Uzumaki blood. The Uzumaki clan created Kenjutsu and gave the art to the monks when they asked. In return, all monks accept 2 seals which cannot be removed without dying. One binds them to an oath to place the second seal on anyone they teach Kenjutsu. The second seal stops them from ever attacking one with Uzumaki blood from a parent who is a recognized member of the clan, as Naruto's mother was, as Naruto is, recognized by her before her death, witnessed by multiple shinobi, and as anyone Naruto adopts into the clan will be. No adopted member of the clan can be attacked either. More than a few Uzumaki are among those monks as well, and due to a seal placed at birth, which Naruto has, no Uzumaki can attack another of the clan who is either adopted in by a recognized member, is a recognized member, or is unrecognized but has the blood. The adoption process includes the placement of a seal that identifies the adoptee, like all Uzumaki are given at birth, I say. Well, this is fascinating, how does it help? I don't think we have time for putting such a seal on us, we have to move soon, Lee asks. True, there is no time for the adoption. But if Naruto doesn't attack them or do them direct harm, they can't attack him. Since the food of the elemental monks has specific dietary requirements that no others have, their food can be poisoned, while not directly attacking any others. Also, those who specialize in Kenjutsu prepare their own food. It's a rule of theirs. So if Naruto poisoned everyone else in the fortress he's assigned to, and took the monks who specialize in his clan's art prisoner, keeping enough supplies from the storehouses intact to bring them back here, then he does them no harm, and they will accept his offer of survival. For the others, a basic identifier seal, showing that you are candidates for adoption into the Uzumaki clan, which will only take a few minutes to implement, will give you authority to make the same arrangement, I tell them. They can be defeated, but it would require the entire team to do so we'll go with a convenient route and possibly get help from them. Naruto is the one who is, by inheritance, the head of the clan, after all. That has sufficient weight to bring them in on our side of things, I continue. Well, that's certainly going to be useful, Sasuke agrees. How easily are these monks identified? Each one of those monks wears a robe with Kenjutsu incorporated into it. The seals are evident, taking the form of various kanji, I explain. Elemental monks wear robes emblazoned with the symbol of their element and images of their element, so are also easy to identify. The last ones wear black and gold robes and are a rather irritating type. They are what might be called paladins. Each of them carries the blessing of a specific god and wields powers based along those of that god. Monks of Susanoo will have powers over the ocean or over storms. Or, they may be able to summon an avatar of him, similar to what Naruto can do. There are of course other possibilities, and many serve more minor gods. They act as support, being able to invoke the powers of their patrons with a prayer and grant blessings in the names of said patrons, making enemies more irritating. Now, they can be dealt with in the same manner their elemental counterparts can, I say, and my team nods. These monks are also adept in close quarters combat, regularly practicing each day. They are also taught a technique similar to some of those the Yamanaka mind walkers use, being able to compartmentalize their minds, at least for those who decide to pursue the path of turning their talents to offense. Those who do not choose to learn to fight never leave their temples. What does the compartmentalization of their minds achieve? Hinata asks, and I grin, satisfied that someone is asking. It divides peace and war. One of their two personalities is peaceful and maintains perfect calm, turning their talents to civilian use. The other is warlike, turning their talents to shedding blood and destroying foes. However, the peaceful mind cannot survive them dipping into their warlike mind forever. Those who cannot retreat from the face of war become bloody-handed creatures who constantly await war and lead the monks into battle in either defense of the temple or offense when called upon by the daemon, though Yugura is filling that role for the land of water. Each warrior dedicates himself to a different path of learning the powers of their patron and are grouped together based on which path they follow. For those who devote themselves to a war god, those have their own aspects which get their devotees grouped together. Except for those who follow the path of a hunter or the aspect of the warrior that specializes in ambush tactics, they won't have any idea of stealth. Thus, they'll be both the easiest and the hardest to kill. They are arrogant with their power, highly belligerent when at war, eager to shed blood. None of their stealth specialists are with them, most likely, but act as if they are and assume you are being hunted. Caution costs nothing. If their stealth specialists aren't with them, they'll be so pathetically vulnerable to ambushes and traps it's sad. They'll never learn to be wary because their aspects are fixed while they're in their warrior mind, I say, grinning. That kind of prey is the thing Black Ops shinobi dream of being allowed to hunt. Understood. Now, you mentioned priests and samurai? Naruto asks, matching my grin. Yes. Priests are essentially monks specializing in summons. They may contract with an animal clan, like ninja do, summon demons to serve them, control beasts like dragons, which exist in 4 types themselves, or summon kami or gods. They may also grant higher level blessings from the gods. Think of them as support for the paladins, and you won't be far wrong. They have no personal capability on the offensive, being able to do no more than summon entities to fight for them. Some create golems' physical bodies and summon spirits into them to turn them into servants, making it harder to fight as the spirit is shielded from harm until the body is rendered unable to fight. Now, dragons, being a popular summon and guardian of temples, come in the form of heavenly dragons, allied with the gods, demon dragons, allied with demons in general, the dragon summons clans, and the dragons that live in this world, rather than the summons realm, the demon realm, or the heavenly realm. Of all of those belonging to this realm are the most dangerous, as dismissal of them cannot be forced. All dragons are dangerous opponents, and all 4 types have their own abilities. Best thing to do is kill priests from a distance to keep them from realizing a threat exists and summoning something to protect them. Also, summons take a while if they don't have a contract to shortcut things, cutting a lot of their work out of the process, I explain. If a summons is disrupted or goes wrong, it's likely to hurt them, so they'll usually stop if something is going wrong and start over. Hi, Tachm, Lee says, clearly understanding how to achieve that particular goal. Finally, we have samurai. Samurai specialize in close combat. Do not engage them there. Their armor is chakra conductive, and no chakra-based technique can get through it. Their blades also channel chakra and are made to cancel out the shield of the armor, so long as the field around the blade exceeds the strength of the armor. Also, they can channel elemental chakra through their blades and armor and use excellent physical enhancement. Thus, they are nightmares in close. However, they are loud, they do not look for opponents who are going to ambush them, and they are vulnerable. They must eat and sleep, and they can't maintain those fields without concentrating on them. If they are sleeping, their armor is useless. They are vulnerable to illusions that are based around you. If you project the illusion from yourself, making you the anchor, rather than anchoring it to them, they are vulnerable. They will feel it is below them to surrender to you, and they will command the conventional forces that do not use chakra, so those forces will not surrender. All other forces can see reason, except maybe some of the ninja, I say. If they surrender, insist on certain precautions and accept it. Prisoners are useful. We send them back, it's a gesture of contempt and lowers morale. They were beaten, so others can be beaten, is the reasoning. Or, they may defect. If samurai surrender, take special precautions, and don't trust it until they're far from armor and weapons and bound so they can't move, I instruct. Hi, Teichm, my genin chorus. Now that is over, I and Yuichiro will take the main island and take out the strategic reserve and strongholds here, and here. As well as the storehouses supporting the supply lines to them. Sasuke, Hinata, you take out the strongholds on the last island, placed here and here, along with their storehouses, indicated on the maps. Poison and ambush are to be your tactics. Split apart when you arrive on your assigned areas, set a point to meet again once the mission is done, and set a time to achieve the mission in. I want this done in 2 weeks. Once these are neutralized, new garrisons will be needed, the defenses will need to be rebuilt if you use explosive tags to destroy them, and of course there is the tiny fact that the surrender will ruin morale as the news spreads. These tactics, done twice, once now and once after they've braced for a repeat, with us proving their security measures ineffectual, will confirm Konoha's entry in full to this war, I tell them, and they nod seriously. Now, get moving. We aren't getting paid to sit around, I growl. Disgrace the name of the Black Ops and you will wish you were never born. Is that understood? Hi, Teichm, my genin chorus as we rise to our feet. Return with success. Return with something to bring Konoha into this war. Naruto, during the 1-week gap between the first mission and the second, we'll deal with your guest, I say, and Naruto nods. Once Konoha troops come into play, and the Land of Fire moves to back us in anticipation of our daemon either being able to install one of his spare sons here or gain some extra territory here, your job, Naruto, will be to show that a Jinchuriki is on our side, and make them panic. 9 tails beats 3, and since we restored the Kikbi, rather than allowing it to remain split, it will be at full power. The Kikbi is known for defeating the Gobi, Nanabi, and the Hachibi in conflict 150 years ago, in a battle well witnessed and documented, with no serious injury to it. Sanbi will be simple to defeat for it, and Kiri knows that. In fact, given that it can raise a tsunami at will, it could drown them. The appearance of a Kikbi Jinchuriki in full control, followed by Konoha forces, will demoralize Kiri and send a message to the world. Only a Jinchuriki can truly defeat another Jinchuriki once transformation is carried out, as a Bij cannot be sealed into a new host when it already has a living one, after all, I tell them. So this is a declaration that Konoha is back to being a military power. A power that is perfectly ready to invade another country to see to its own security. The party people react to, rather than the one reacting, Sasuke figures out. That will give Iwa and Kumo pause, Hinata continues, grinning, and Sasuke starts laughing as he completes the chain of reasoning. Konoha has the strongest economy, the richest territory, and the largest population. We start our war machine going, and once Kumo and Iwa finish soiling themselves, they'll be falling all over themselves and fighting for the chance to make a peace treaty first, he says. Indeed. After all, there is only an armistice that can be broken at any time keeping Konoha from resuming active operations in the Third Great War. Once Konoha is back on a war footing, recalls Tsunade and Jiraiya, and has Kiri and Suna with their war machines going, backing it, along with their countries following behind, Iwa and Kumo will not be able to surrender in full fast enough, I say. Kiri is what prevented us from decisively crushing them before the Hiraishin went active with the Yondaime in the Third War, with their coastal raiding. We had to divert forces elsewhere. But with Kiri raiding their coasts and wind shipyards that produce its immense merchant marine, which makes up a lot of its economic power, turn to making warships for securing our maritime supply lines and coastal raiding, as well as transporting strike forces, they are doomed, and they no doubt know it, I say. Excellent, Sasuke growls. It may not be blood for blood, but seeing those of Iwa come groveling before Konoha begging that we not return to active operations will be very satisfying. It should be more satisfying, I chasten him. Kill a man, and you but take his life. Kill his pride, and you take his reason to live. Make him watch his leader grovel before you, his country submit to yours, and make him watch for the rest of his life, and he will forever regret crossing you, I lecture, and Sasuke bows. Thank you for your correction of my foolishness, sensei. I stand corrected, he replies. Good. Naruto, I know for a fact that the Anbu instructed you in Kenjutsu during our original 3-month training period, that you have since made a habit of reading advanced sealing manuals and master-level treatises on the art of Kenjutsu. You no doubt know the basic seals of your clan, correct? I ask, and Naruto nods. Good. Plus the identifier seals I specified earlier on your team, myself, and Yuichiro. I take it having the Sharingan helped you memorize the theory, and I know for a fact that you managed, in Konoha's estimation at least, to qualify as a master of Kenjutsu, a level which requires the redesign for increased efficiency of one seal, a newly created seal to achieve a specified function. To be designed within 1 week, the ability to deploy Kenjutsu in combat with only minimal preparation, minimal being defined as 2 hours, sadly enough, far below the standards of your clan, and the ability to use materials other than the standard paper and ink as mediums for seals, correct? I ask, having reviewed those standards when I heard Naruto was attempting the trials. Correct, Teichm, Naruto answers. He now wears the rope belt signifying his attainment, scrolls tucked into it. You excelled, I believe, most likely thanks to your natural bent for it, aid from the Sharingan in theory memorization, and of course all those hours you spent practicing. I am rather irritated that you used the artifact I meant to use on Hinata alone to aid yourself as well without informing me, Naruto. I do owe you aid as an instructor, but you did not need to sneak in all those shadow clones, enhanced by seals to allow nature chakra conversion to sustain them, and another seal that allowed the transfer of muscle memory without so much as a by your leave, I chasten my student. You managed to design the new seal requested, a seal granting immunity to a specific poison, which poison you had to determine from the sample you were given, in only a single day. The redesign of the standard seal to stop fires had the efficiency increased by 80%. You took 15 minutes to prepare for combat using solely Kenjutsu and defeated a Chunin, when all before you have faced Chunin as is required under regulations, using only Kenjutsu, even when allowed to change your style of combat and use other shinobi arts, such as Yunjutsu or Taijutsu. You proved able to work seals in water, chakra and dirt. I am very proud of that achievement. So, on balance, I forgive you adding yourself to the training session, though I would have been glad to send a clone to aid you if I had warning of what you were going to do. My apologies, Teichm, Naruto replies, bowing in contrition. Accepted. Plus the seals. When attacking your assigned stronghold, leave some free of the poison and fight with Kenjutsu. It has long been Kiri's worst nightmare to fight in Uzumaki with a Sharingan. After all, it makes memorization so much easier, and memorization is a lot of what lies behind the sealing arts. Practice what Mokuton you know. Reveal your heritage and let some run to Yagura. If you can use Kenjutsu at a high enough level and reveal that you are Kikbizjinch Kriki, it will be, to Kiri at least, as if they are facing Madara and Hashirama reborn, combined with an Uzumaki Kenjutsu master of old, with the power of an engine of destruction beyond any they have faced behind it. Your master add up to 3 tails. Use that ability. Let their genin run, I think. Those will be the ones that panic and amplify the tale, until Kiri thinks Madara himself has clawed his way from the grave to destroy them, I say. That's evil, Teichm, he says. I like it. Should I use Tsukuyomi to help them come to that conclusion and cause the necessary destruction afterwards? Naruto asks, grinning. Perhaps. I know the Manjikam comes with 3 techniques and more can be awakened as you work at it. How many do you have and what are they? How long have you been working with them? I have the basic 3, Amaterasu, Susanoo and Tsukuyomi. I had to awaken Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi as my Manjikam came with the techniques Jin, Izanagi and Susanoo. Izanagi is normally a forbidden jutsu available to all Uchiha, costing the sight of the eye that uses it, however my eye and no Manjikam and my Manjikam before it permit me to use it for 1 minute every hour, though how long it takes to be available again is starting to decrease. It is now at 45 minutes. I am working on awakening Kamui at this time, Naruto answers. Jin essentially allows me to see what the winds pass over and to hear any conversation in a windy area. It also, while in use, allows me to control the winds. When I advanced to Iron no Manjikam, I gained Amaterasu and Jashin. Jashin makes me into that avatar of that god once weekly, no more, though indications are that that can be improved as well, Naruto explains. Excellent. Tsukuyomi is not hard to awaken for one with the other 2 parts of that trio, so it will probably take a while to achieve Kamui still, but all in all a strong set of abilities. What about Mokuton? I just recently figured how that I had it and have only started practicing with it. My ability with it is immensely strong, much stronger than Yamato's, the Anbu who Orochimaru grafted the ability into, but still I lack experience, even with clones practicing it. Also, the ability is immature. It is still strengthening. I have the ability to perform all of Hashirama's techniques, but I do not yet have the skill or depth of power necessary. I have the ability to reach that power level, but Mokuton is complicated. As it is, in a confined area, so long as I use illusions and Fukinjutsu to amplify my abilities and the appearance of them, can provide at least a reasonable facsimile of Hashirama's strength, enough to make genin, who are poorly equipped to judge such things, convinced that I am Hashirama's or Madara's equal. As it is, I anticipate a minimum of 4 years of training with Mokuton alone, before I can use Mokuton at Hashirama's level. That discounts Hashirama's combat experience. A similar time will be required with Madara's abilities, though Madara left a scroll detailing all his techniques for his daughter and any grandchildren he might have. The only problem is that there are a lot of them. I am anticipating that shadow clone training will allow me to cut the 4-year time period in half and train in the abilities of both, as well as continue my Fukinjutsu education. However, I will still not have their experience, power, and depth of ability, Naruto reports. Understandable. They had a full lifetime of training in far harsher conditions, and now you're stuck catching up to them with less training than they had. Do the best you can, I order. You will be our major psychological weapon. When the time comes to face Yugura, though defeating him would be simple enough, I will simply provoke him to transform. Then you will transform as well and defeat him, Naruto. That way, the Kyuubi is shown to be under your control, and shinobi respect power. If you have the Kyuubi leashed, those hostile to you, anticipating similar episodes to what have happened with the Hachibi, will be far more amenable to your eventually taking the position of Hokage, I say, reasoning out what can be done to aid Naruto's chances. You are our major weapon against enemy morale in this war, Naruto, and I will see to it that your plans go well. I taught you to stand in the shadows because it was necessary, and it will help your chances of becoming Hokage to have a firm grasp of the rules of the darker parts of the world. I will see to it that those who walk in the light, inasmuch as any shinobi can be said to do so, are properly guided to accept your eventual leadership. Understood, Naruto replies. Now don't think I'll rescue you from a major screw-up. But the minor things, little details like a forgotten sentry or such, I'll clean up. Major stuff, you need to worry about, understood. And try not to make me do much, if any cleanup. After the war is over, we'll go over what I had to do to keep things running smoothly, and you'll figure out how to do it without me, fair enough? I ask. Hi, Tachm, Naruto answers with a nod and a smile. Now, the talking is done. Let's go, I say, and we slip out of our tent and enter the shadows, the team separating into its 3 parts the moment we reach the boundaries of the camp. I leave a copy of our plans in Mei's tent, just so she knows what we're doing. Going somewhere? I hear a voice ask as I slip through the mist and the shadows, almost a kilometer from the camp. I've known the speaker has been following me for a while, and am rather grateful he has. I could use the backup where I'm going, after all. 2 other chakra sources of comparable power are with this particular person, and I silently wonder who they are as I turn to face Kisum. Yes, I reply, stepping into view from the shadows. You hide well. I knew you were there, but couldn't see you no matter how well Samahata locked onto your energy signature, Kisum replies. Deploying your team? Correct. A 3-pronged assault, I answer. I think I'll come with you. I can do stealth if I need to, and there are a couple brats of my clan who need the experience as well, Kisum says, indicating the pair of Chunin behind him, with appearances and swords very similar to his, though one is female. They also wear clothes like his, and I wonder at that. Clan garb, if you're wondering about the clothes. The original Samahata, the one I carry, was made from a scale of the Sanbi. An ancestor fought the Sanbi and took a scale from it, turning the scale into a sword by feeding it his chakra. Now, scales of that Samahata become new chakra-eating swords. We pick the weapon we want, and a frame is provided. The scale is taken from the original, and that scale grows along the frame and absorbs it as it is fed chakra. Eventually, a new blade, with similar if slightly weaker abilities, is born. The clan leader and the heir carry the original Samahata and the first new sword born from the original, respectively. These 2 have their swords grown in full by now and aren't too bad at fighting, so I'm taking them out with me to get some experience and look for trouble. Then you come along, and I see I've found some, he says. Are you going to fight me? I ask, hand falling to Senbonsakura's hilt. No, you're one of us. A shark through and through, I can see it. Ruthless, hungry to sink your teeth into your prey, a cold dark cunning. So I'm going to adopt you as one of my clan when this is done, and we'll see you get a clan blade to make your own. I've seen your ilk before, as has my clan, Shinigami-san, Kisum says. Now, I realize you have a cover, and I'll respect that. But I am curious about your mission, if you'll indulge me. There are rogues here, who have taken to eating souls in a manner similar to hollows. Also, some are seeking immortality. I am here to stop both groups. I am, with his permission, using the name of Izanagi no Mikoto and wielding his power while he is apparently on vacation. I have access to his spear and managed to resurrect Izanami for him, though due to divine law, she's mine now, which I wasn't expecting, so I've been pulling it off. I expect to continue doing so. Instructing my team is simply a way to keep me occupied and do a few things to help this world out. I'm able to look into the threads of the future with Izanagi's power, so I've been doing some planning, I explain. I'll tell you the rest later. We're going with you on the mission. The kind of trouble you'll be making is what I was looking for, Kisum explains. You'll follow my orders while on the mission and maintain stealth until I say otherwise. I ask, and Kisum nods in reply, unwrapping Samahata and placing his hand on it. By my oath, upon my blade, I will follow your orders and maintain stealth until told otherwise, he promises. I'll tell you my entire story so far during the mission, then. It's a 2-week deployment meant to drop enemy morale, wreck 20 of his storehouses and 10 of his strongholds, bring prisoners in for exchange or other purposes, and give Yugura fits, I say. All very worthwhile goals in and of themselves. A nice deployment to get these two in shape sounds just like what is called for, Kisum says. Might I introduce my sister's youngest son, Kirasum, and my annoying little sister, from my father's third wife before he died at the start of the purges, Chisum. Kisum has turned into someone men avoid if at all possible, given that she takes after the very worst traditions of the clan, in terms of dealing with men. If one interests her, she jumps him, and given that her last lover ended up castrated and nearly ripped apart by her for not satisfying her, any male with good sense avoids her. Hopefully, you'll be better off if she tries anything with you, Kisum says, and I grin as I remove my helm. Kirasum is slightly smaller than Kisum, built similarly, and has an adachi slung across his back. Kisum, on the other hand, is much more slender, has assets close to Tsunade's, absolutely no shame about them, and wears multiple swords, one of them a broad date like Samahata, a proper greatsword, and that is indeed her blade made from Samahata's scales. She carries 2 katanas and an adachi besides, and I nod reluctantly. She needs to be gotten out and about before she just jumps every male in the camp and traumatizes them. I hope you don't mind, Kisum says. Not at all. Now, let's go. I want to be attacking my first target by this time tomorrow. I have 18 of them to hit in 2 weeks, after all, I say. Slow me down and get left behind. Fair enough, Kisum says, and we begin to travel, moving through the mist-like shadows, using chakra to boost our speed. When we reach the coast, I move onto the water and astralize, even as Kisum dives into the water, followed by Kirasum and Chisum, all of whom move swiftly through the water, with me following. Materializing on occasion to deal with Kiri patrols water walking to try and stop invaders, as well as to make sure my companions will make landfall in the right place. Yuichiro picked up how to astralize fairly quickly and is riding on my shoulder as has become her habit. After several hours, we arrive just as the sun is falling and move along the coast, soon finding a cave. It is mostly submerged, but that is no barrier to any of us, and shortly after have a fire set up in the cavern. We are underground, with several holes in the top of the cave letting in moonlight, shining upon the water around us on the small island within the cave where we are preparing for tomorrow. Our refuge most likely won't be found by Kiri Shinobi, since the cave is actually beneath a small island about 3 km off the coast of the island hosting Kurigakure, and the island is ignored by Yugura's forces, or more likely unknown. Kisum, whose clan spends more time in the water than out of it when they can, didn't know about this island existing. Our fire is nonetheless kept smokeless, just in case. Chisum dives into the water shortly after we arrive, returning with several fish for our dinner, which Kirasum is assigned to cook. The water itself here hosts several sharks, and while the food is cooking, I walk out to where one of them is circling, roughly 5 meters in length, and it rises above the water in apparent curiosity. Making new friends, Ichigo? Chisum asks from the island as I kneel down, the shark circling around me. I reach out one gauntleted hand and let it ride along the shark's rough hide as the creature moves, astralizing my armor a moment later as it moves beyond my reach. Get your armor back on before you try that again, otherwise your skin will be torn off and it'll lunge for you. Unnecessary, I reply, and my unarmored hand glides along the shark's hide, my Hiero holding against its skin without trouble. I suspected the presence of Hiero due to my hollow abilities, but wasn't sure until now. I have certain abilities that render my skin impenetrable to anything that isn't highly concentrated force, I inform her. Ichigo, don't return to the island for a while, unless you want to have an encounter with Chisum, Kisum calls. She doesn't have a sense of shame, and I honestly think she's an exhibitionist, he warns. Also, people who like sharks apparently interest her. We'll provide you with a list of what catches her interest later, for your own safety. I do need to eat, so I'll be back shortly, I call back. Can I trust you two to keep her off of me? I ask. We'll try, Kisum calls replies. But no promises. And after you eat you're on your own, agreed. He asks, and I nod in resignation, presented with my options. Go the rest of this mission without sleep, watching for Chisum, or deal with her interest now. Agreed, I say, and head for the island a few minutes later. As we eat, I carefully watch Chisum, who is seated across the fire from me. The small island we're sitting on is quite hospitable really, large enough for all of us to set up tents for ourselves, including Yiru, who apparently decided to sleep in her tent tonight, with a small forest in the middle, and a freshwater spring there, as opposed to the saltwater surrounding us. Once the meal is over, I find Chisum finished her food while I was distracted talking with Kisum. Have fun, Kisum says, and I start cursing him, calling his ancestry into very severe question in very minute detail, creating an entirely new family tree for him, stretching back several generations as Chisum grabs me from behind. Kisum just starts laughing. I will have revenge for this, I say as I astralize. Or try to astralize, and fail. I curse, and am dragged inexorably towards Chisum's tent. I astralized my armor and robes before I sat down to eat, exposing pressure points which Chisum exploits to keep me from being able to bring my full strength to bear in an attempt to escape. I roar in rage and call upon my Ryatsu, boosting my muscles as I attempt to force my blades to materialize, struggling to escape from her grasp, as Yuichiro, Kisum, and Kirisum watch, Kisum rolling around laughing. He will be the first to feel my vengeance, I decide as I am dragged into Chisum's tent and my Ryatsu becomes inaccessible. Apparently, she put up seals to block the usage of any type of energy, chakra or not, as her grip slackens slightly as well. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, Chisum says as she closes the door to the tent. I'll be blunt about this. I'd prefer the easy way, where we both participate. However, my grandmother was a Jinchuriki. Specifically, of the Nibi. And the Nibi, which only accepts female hosts, killing any male people, try to seal it into, changes its hosts and their descendants. My clan being descended from shark demons doesn't help much either, she growls. I have two outlets for my energy. Like many sharks, I don't stop moving. I can't stop moving. But as a kunoichi, I have to do so on occasion. That leaves me with a lot of energy. And my heritage either puts me into a version of heat when that energy gets to be too much, taken from the Nibi, or sends me into a fighting rage. Now, this particular condition isn't unknown among the clan. There are others with the same condition, or at least a similar one, due to the same problem from our heritage. Now, I don't want to go into a fighting rage and force my brother to beat me into submission. That will be messy and have consequences for our mission. So, are we doing this the easy way or the hard way? She asks. I close my eyes and snarl lightly. The easy way. I'm still going to feed Kisum his own sword for this, though, I say. I'll help. You deserve something for the way he set you up at least. You see, he felt you were too serious after you fought those bandits and thought that introducing us would help us both. I understand what you are. I know there can't be anything permanent between us. Even if there could be, it wouldn't make sense for me as a kunoichi. I need to be able to stand alone. If a half-Shinigami child is born of us, the clan will help me look after the young one. If we married, though, it would be you and me looking after the child, standing alone as is custom, the clan stepping in only if absolutely necessary. So, shall we get this over with? She asks, and I nod. Very well. Let's make him regret the introduction of us though. Think we can make enough noise to keep him up all night long? I ask, and she grins. The question is, do you have the energy? Chisum returns. I am captain of the 8th Division, Kenpachi Yamamoto Ichigo, great-grandson of Yamamoto Genrikse Shijikuni, Saudachim of the Sirite Guard, head of the first of all noble houses, who founded the Sirite Guard. The power of that blood runs in me, as a noble of the Sirite and a warrior of the guard, I reply, my voice ringing beyond the confines of the tent as I stand straight, my pride showing itself as I declare my identity. I hear Kisum cursing as he is informed of precisely who I am. Even without the ability to manifest my power externally or use it for enhancement, I have the energy, I say more quietly. Then let's get around to it. I think this is the start of a beautiful friendship, Yamamoto, Chisum says, and I nod. I'm Skip. The next morning. Damn you both, Kisum groans as myself and Chisum leave her tent around 8 in the morning. We spent 11 hours devoting ourselves to disturbing the peace, and from the expression on Kisum's face, I think we succeeded. He has a jug of sake pilfered from somewhere at his side, as does Kirisum. I think I'm doing you both a favor, introducing you two. Kisum will get someone who might be able to keep up with her, I thought. Only to find she can't keep up with him. I go to steal some sake from a nearby outpost. Will you loosen up by getting laid, Ichigo? And when I get back I find you two still at it, 4 damned hours after it started. Making enough noise that you put the sound suppressor seals we laid around the cavern when we got here to the test, which they nearly failed. He shouts. I didn't get any sleep last night, and now I find you two leaving the tent, finally done after 11 hours, with Chisum looking exhausted and needing surgery to remove that truly unnatural smile, me needing more sake to wipe the memories away, and finally, you, Ichigo Yamamoto, the person with a lineage that was noble before the warring clans era had even started. Before most of those clans had formed, looking as serious as ever, and as if you got a full night's sleep. He rants. Chisum, I think you need to calm down, Chisum says. I am calm, I just need more sake to help with that, Chisum says. I really like him by the way. Being able to use one of those kidden to breathe underwater let us move our activities there a couple hours ago. We only returned to the tent about 15 minutes ago to make sure it was clean, which it mostly was, she says. I hate you both, Chisum says without feeling. I wish you good luck, Yamamoto Ichigo, Kirisum says, speaking for the first time in my hearing. You'll need it. Once she finds someone she likes, she doesn't let go, he says. I make my own luck, with the power of my blades and the might of my kidden, I say. I am a captain of the Sirete Guard, one of the strongest of them all. Sheer strength compensates for luck, Kirisum-san, I tell him. At least if you outclass everyone enough it does. Now, I have a mission to begin. I will see all of you later, I say, astralizing. I arrive, almost an hour later, in one of Yugura's storehouses. The place is filled with food, taking the form of a single massive warehouse, with shelves running all along its walls, and more shelves and stands in the center, filled with prepared meals that have been placed under stasis seals, allowing them to be ready to eat the moment they are delivered. Along with a lot more unprepared food in containers which are also under stasis seals. I decide to think for a moment on how to deal with this, as in this one storehouse is enough food to feed all of Konoha for a month at minimum. Why do we have to be the ones who draw this assignment? Echnin asks. It's not as if anyone is going to break into here, so why doesn't Yugura-sama assign a genin to this job? He growls. I materialize in front of him, in full armor and wearing my robes, sword drawn. I remove my helm a moment later, as the two Chknin in front of me gape in shock. Who are you and why are you here? The second Chknin asks, and I take on a thoughtful look. Oh right, I remember now, I say a moment later. Ichigo Yamamoto, with the Bloodline Rebellion. I'm here to kill you and take this food. Either of you have a problem with that? I ask. No. You sure? Okay then, time to die, I say, sheathing my blade and flipping the pentacle-shaped Quincy cross hanging from my left gauntlet up into my left hand, an immense black and red longbow formed from Reishi materializing a second later. I use Shunpo, and a moment later, am a good 300 meters from the two. The storehouse itself is a long building, roughly 2 kilometers long and 100 meters high, so I have plenty of room to fight, even if I do have to be somewhat careful about the food. One tries to turn to run as the other charges me, drawing the sword he is carrying, and a dozen black spirit arrows fly from my bow in quick succession. The first two castrate the pair, testing my ability to aim for small targets. They fall to their knees as the next pair pierce their sword hands, the sword falling from the charging Chknin's hand and clattering on the floor. Another pair pierces their hearts, 4 more take out their eyes, and the last pair slam right into the middle of their foreheads, finishing the job for sure. The bodies collapse to the floor as the spirit arrows dissolve, and I begin the transport kit that will send this food to the rebellion base and trade for a lot of empty air from that location. I specify the coordinates, exclude myself from transport, and begin the chant a few minutes later. Let the air be as the road, for this is decreed. Heavenly messenger, path of righteousness, the road whose foundation is built on the dawn. My command is iron, let it be obeyed with all haste, for my authority is true, I intone, and a flash of blue light engulfs the storehouse, the food vanishing, as I open the communications kit my setup to go with the transport kit, a spirit projection of me appearing in front of Mei's tent. Mei herself is meeting with Ao, both of them, along with many other rebellion shinobi, looking at the food in shock. Ichigo? Mei asks as she notices me. The projection, I reply. I notice my bow is still in my hand and dismiss it, the cross falling from my hand as the bow dissolves. Maybe I should use my Quincy abilities more often. They certainly proved useful here, after all. I've practiced on a cursory basis, but actually working on mastering the abilities of the Quincy couldn't hurt. Do you know anything about this delivery? What is it anyways? Ao asks. I sent this delivery. It's the contents of one of Yugura's storehouses. The food is under stasis seals and should help a bit, especially if my team brings prisoners back from the enemy strongholds. Also, shinobi are pragmatic. If you have food and Yugura doesn't, I trail off. They'll come over to our side, Mei says, looking triumphant. Send us more when you can, we can use the food anyways. We've been shorter than I'd have liked, having to go on half rations for the last month. Being able to actually have full meals again will raise morale here immensely, make us far more effective. Also, a couple questions, she mentions. Ask. I move shortly, so make it quick, I respond. First, are Kisum, Kirasum, and Chisum with you? She asks. I nod in reply. Why did you mention the bureaucracy in Konoha? Wouldn't that dissuade our bloodline carriers from going there? I want them there for a specific reason. All civilian clan heads have one vote on the village council. All shinobi clan heads, likewise, have one vote. The Hokage and each of his advisors have one vote. The Anbu commander holds one vote. The Chunin commander, who must delegate that vote at random to a different shinobi of Chunin rank or higher, selected by lot if he or she is a clan head, has one vote. Currently, the votes cannot be had to repeal the Nidame's reforms, which strip most of the Hokage's authority from him. However, all bloodline clans have their heads seated on the council by those same reforms. Seated immediately, to be exact. The current balance of power is shinobi and a very few civilians against the bulk of the civilians, who have a slight numerical advantage. Just 3 more votes will give us the majority necessary to repeal those reforms and create a more sensible power structure for a shinobi village, I say with no small satisfaction. So you're doing all of this to get rid of the power the civilians have stolen from the Hokage, Mei realizes. Correct. Among other things, of course, I say, not intending to give a full picture of my actions to anyone. After all, my plan only works when those I am using to achieve my aims think they know a large part of my plans, when in fact they only know one part, a small part at that, of the greater picture. Of course, Mei says. This makes even more sense now. The Hokage has got to be resenting losing all that power because of his sensei's reforms, and then we come along, with a perfect pretext for him to bring in new clans, as a price for aiding us and securing the land of Fire's coast, and then he gets multiple clans grateful to him who will vote to restore his power. That is of course, a part of his considerations, I say. You can tell him not to worry. I'll pick clan heads for the branches being sent to Konoha who will vote exactly as he wants on that particular issue. I'll select them with the utmost care, so the aims of the man who is going to help us win this war will be achieved, Mei swears. I'm sure he will be glad to hear that, I reply, bowing and ending my projection, returning to my body and astralizing once more. What was with that light, you think? Another Chunin asks, entering the building alongside a companion, completing the standard garrison of 4 Chunin Yugura has watching his storehouses. They look at the shelves and gape as I materialize, seeing the lack of food on the shelves. I draw a pair of ginten from my robes, having had them made by the 12th to practice with. A silver rod strikes the 5-fingered stone bed grits, I say, and throw the rods, the 2 being engulfed in coffin-like prisons formed of reishi. I flip the cross back into my hand, and 2 arrows pierce the brains of the Chunin, their corpses falling as the prisons dissolve with the death of their occupants. I pass by the bodies on my way out and reclaim my ginten. 1 down. Do you feel like someone is watching you? I hear a Chunin say to a pair of Chunin 5 hours later. I've liberated the contents of another storehouse, and now I'm attacking the fortress they once supplied. A rather nice little fortress, with a traditional castle in the Japanese style at the center, high stone walls 500 meters from the castle, and the ground between the castle and the walls, filled with parade grounds for common soldiers, training areas for chakra-using forces, small shrines where the monks may attend to their prayers, an armory, a stable for samurai who feel like riding. And several barracks. Pity it's all about to be destroyed. Someone is indeed watching us, a passing monk says. Given his robes, he's one of those paladins. Looks like one of Amaterasu's, and I prepare to fight. Show yourself, be you man or be you spirit, he commands, his eyes blazing, becoming pits of burning sunlight. I materialize, deciding to summon my newest favorite toy, Aim no Nuhoko, rather than draw a blade, armor dematerialized, but robes still very much there. A spirit then. Prepare to die, abomination, the paladin intones, and a katana made of the same sunlight that is in his eyes appears in his hands, blazing along the edges with a black fire as the Manjukum Sharingan may also summon. My spear spins in my hand, becoming a blur before I snap into a guard position, right foot forward, spear across my body and coming up diagonally, the end of the shaft near my right foot. A position where I may intercept a blow with the shaft, then bring the bladed edge of the head down in retaliation. I call upon Izanagi's power, intending to use it so as to avoid accidentally killing anyone by overloading their soul. If I ever do that, I want it to be intentional. The spear blazes with light as I call upon the power, the formidable might of Izanagi no Mikoto flooding my limbs, increasing my already vast strength. In that moment, with power flooding me, my authority granted by him, and his spear in my hands, I am Izanagi. The paladin pales. Weren't you saying something about how I was to prepare to die? I remind him as he backs away, starting to stammer apologies. Great one, might I request of thee thy name? A second paladin, this one a bit older, wearing light armor under his robes, marked as a monk in service to Susanoo, asks. Izanagi no Mikoto, I respond. The monk who was about to attack me falls to his knees and starts trying to bury his face in the dirt to hide his shame. Every samurai and monk within hearing, upon receipt of that declaration and seeing the spear in my hands, falls to their knees, heads bowed. Seriously, shouldn't you be attacking me by now? I ask the first monk. He whimpers in reply. Great One, creator of all the lands, father of Amaterasu, father of Susanoo, father of Tsukiyomi, we humbly beg thy forgiveness for the rash actions of this pupil, who will of course be thoroughly chastened for his belligerence and arrogance, the second monk says, apparently not being able to retreat from the aggressive position of his comrade fast enough. I was looking forward to a good fight here, you know. I ask rhetorically. I am invoked by the rebellion, with the greatest of respect I haven't been given by any monk since Yugura took over, and I decide to help them out, tip the scales in their favor. Their cause is righteous, after all, and I felt divine aid and intervention was merited. How many shrines to me are there in the land of water? I ask. Then no none, Great One, the first monk answers, rising to his feet. You truly anticipated battle, Great One? He asks. Yeah. You feel like giving me a fight? I ask hopefully. I raise my spear back to guard and start grinning as I summon my armor, which has turned to brilliant gold and silver, adorned in fine jewels. It would be my honor, he says fiercely, summoning his blade once more. Great One, how might you be appeased so that you once more smile on Yugura-sama's righteous cause, of purging all with bloodlines from this earth? The second monk asks, and I frown at him. My helm is still hanging at my belt, never put back on after I took it off earlier today, and my dis is clear as a black aura burns around me. Appeasement? I ask in a voice like thunder. The monk is apparently too stupid to take a hint. Indeed, Great One, he says, rising to look me in the eye. You must smile upon Yugura-sama's quest. The other gods do, and thus you must show him favor, Great One, he declares. You dare? I ask, infuriated. You dare dictate terms to me? I snarl, as enraged as if I was Izanagi himself. Mortal, remember who you are speaking to, I whisper in a cold tone promising death. I am Izanagi no Mikoto. I was the one who with a spear in my hands created this island from a drop of water. I was the one who gave birth to your patron when I cleansed myself of the filth of Yomi. I am a primordial god. There is no equal to me save for Izanami among the heavens, I hiss, and the monk pales. My shrines are burned, my worshippers killed at Yugura's order. I received no praise, no offerings, no prayers from this land until the rebellion entreated me for aid, looking first to me, as is only right. If I should thus choose to grant them aid, who are you to try to dictate that I should be appeased? That I should be content to smile upon some insolent, arrogant mortal? I roar, and he is trembling. A mortal who burned my shrines. A mortal who dared kill my worshippers. Who has offended me beyond tolerance, and you dare try and tell me to be honored, me, first of the greater kami, to smile upon him. To bless his extermination of those who have actually remembered me and who have applied to me for aid. How dare you? I rage, and the monk falls to his knees, begging mercy. Sadly, I'm all out of mercy. Insect, die, I command, and my spear comes sweeping down, cleaving him in two at the waist. Now, anyone else looking for trouble, or are you going to surrender the moment I summon one of the bloodline rebellion here to accept your surrenders? I growl. Izanagi-sama, we beg forgiveness. We will, of course, surrender, one of the samurai, wearing the insignia of the commander of this stronghold, says. Such offenses as Yugura-sama has committed are no doubt unbearable. It is of course understood by all why you hold him in ill favor, and we will not presume to apply to you to alter your decision, he says. Good. It's nice to see someone hasn't forgotten how things go in this world, I say. Do you still want that fight, Izanagi-sama? The monk of Amaterasu who started all this asks. Of course. Once I calm a bit, we'll enjoy a little fight. Now, a moment please, I say much more calmly than before, reaching out to Kisam's mind. Kisam, sent Kirisam. The first fortress on my list surrendered. They have a very firm belief that I'm Izanagi, so make sure that Kirisam understands not to disabuse them of the notion, I instruct, and break the connection. At least things are starting out well on this mission. Hopefully I'll actually see battle in the next fortress though. So I'm to take this group back to the main encampment while you chase in the others who dare serve Yugura, Izanagi-sama? Kirisam asks, bowing deeply. Indeed, I reply. Fail this charge at your peril, I say, then turn to the prisoners, who are mustered in ranks behind me, facing Kirisam. Attempt escape upon pain of death and damnation unto your souls, I growl. They do go to the Serite after all, and I've marked them with a kitten that will distinguish their spirits when I return home. If they behave themselves, I'll remove it. If they don't, they'll be thrown into hell once I get back to the Serite. I think that should motivate them sufficiently to behave. You have my word as a samurai and as commander of this force that we shall attempt no escape so long as this war lasts, the fort commander replies. I managed to get my sparring match in during the 3 hours it took Kirasum to arrive, though I'm still looking for a fight. Very well, I reply, and astralize as I move into Shunpo, not pausing for long enough that any sensor, no matter how good, could register my presence before I vanish again, reappearing mere minutes later a short distance from the second fortress I am planning to attack. I meant to deal with this one tomorrow, but since I haven't gotten a fight in yet, I'll just start one here. Before I can select how I'm going to attack, though, I feel a nudge against my mind, as if someone is trying to communicate. Who is it? I demand, my mental voice thundering much louder than I expected it to. Izanagi, the person trying to contact me, responds. I felt you draw on my power and wanted to confirm something. Now that I've heard your mental voice, it is very much confirmed, he says. Explain, I demand, putting barely the force of a whisper behind it. It still sounds like a thunderous roar, and I frown. I am not putting that much power behind my mental voice, so why is it so loud? When you drew on my power, a factor I forgot came into play. There are 4 things needed for the universe to know someone is Izanagi no Mikoto. 1. The name. I have that. 2. The bond to Izanami. You have that. 3. The spear, which both of us have, though I forgot where it went. I never used the thing after creating the world, after all. 4. The power and right to worship. I gave you the access to the power and the strength gained from worship, so you have that. Now, given that you are the more active user of the spear, you have precedence over me in that respect. 3 out of 4, so once you called on my power, the universe decided I was an imposter, and you were Izanagi no Mikoto, thus labeling you as me. The name is that of both a person and a position, you could say. I can resume the position the moment you decide to step down, as I hold the name and precedence over you in the position, but so far as anyone you meet will be concerned, including those monks dedicated to me, you are Izanagi no Mikoto, Izanagi informs me, chuckling slightly. This is not funny, I snarl in reply. Amaterasu also figured out what happened once the universe figured it out and made the change, and she isn't best pleased, but she's calming down. All in all, it's a matter of you have the power and the authority of both, the Shinigami and Izanagi no Mikoto, as one position is natural to you, and how the world interprets your ilk, and the other is essentially an amendment to your authority granted when certain factors came into play, Izanagi explains. You have as much right to the name Izanagi no Mikoto as I do now, and so long as you are in this world, you are, for all intents and purposes, the primordial god who created the world. It's also an amendment to Akasha's records on you, just so you know, he tells me, and I raise my eyes towards the heavens. Will it stretch outside this world? I ask. Not for a while. Eventually, after you've spent maybe a century or so here, your nature will change enough that you become a true primordial divinity, rather than a greater divinity, which you are by virtue of your power. All you Shinigami are divine beings, with the power and authority of your nature. However, few of you ever transcend into the status of the lesser divine beings, and only the greatest of those enter the ranks of the greater divinities. To use the example of that Western culture of your world, the Greeks, the lesser divinities are more immortal humans granted some authority, enough to do their job. Like that cupbearer of their ruler, Ganymede, I believe. I have some contact through the dimensions with other pantheons and their realms, and I've run into Zeus a few times, Izanagi tells me, going on a slight tangent. That to the point, I say, wanting to get around to my assault on the fortress already. Now, as you grow older and stronger, some of your rank seize authority for themselves, rather than merely being granted it. They become lesser divinities, beings of no small power themselves, equivalent to Greek gods like Phobos, Pan, Iris, or Morpheus. Those of you who grow more powerful and survive even longer, or attain the full strength of your blades, become essentially major gods, able to call yourselves the equal of any Olympian. Now, you are quite powerful even for a major god, but age also adds authority, and will eventually remake you into what I am. Since your concept of being, your aspect of death is death itself, or blades, which may also translate to war, you exist upon a pair of primordial concepts, making your eventual evolution inevitable. This will quicken that, add a bit to your concept of existence, essentially accompanying powers to what you already have, and temporarily advances you anyways to the status, since you need that status and authority to go with your new post, Izanagi explains. So a temporary addition to my authority. A weaker major god is still stronger than a minor god, as their authority overrides that of the lesser divinity, and a weaker primordial god is still stronger due to their authority than a major god, though when multiple authorities clash, the equation changes, correct? I ask. Precisely. Now that you're occupying my post officially, you have access to my full power in this world, though not outside it. Outside this world, you're still only a major god. Now, do you mind doing me another small favor? Just a tiny one, I promise. In fact, for a primordial god, even a temporary, substitute one, this is so small it won't even register on the scale, most likely, Izanagi says. What is it? I ask resignedly. You see, I've been getting along rather well with this one kitsune for a few centuries. She enjoys playing tricks, and she played one on Susanoo, who has applied to me for help fixing it, and in the process found out about my vacation and informed Amaterasu, who has made a few decisions I'll mention in a moment, so you actually have an indirect reason to help me. Now, this kitsune, who I foolishly allowed into the heavenly realms, stole Susanoo's sword. He doesn't use the thing often, but he feels it is an offense to his dignity to have his sword replaced with a balloon animal. However, he refuses to enter the mortal realm and find it himself, Izanagi explains. I see, I reply, disgusted with Susanoo's apparent laziness. So, if you'd be very nice and find the sword, I'll try and help you with Amaterasu, who had her plans backfire on her. You see, you're essentially a major god at the least. We have never had one of your ilk here at that level, and she wanted to try and fit you into the structure of power. So she decided to bring you into the hierarchy, find some minor goddess to bond you to. So, she called the various goddesses together and requested a volunteer. You see, she didn't realize you were a major god until she had already called that gathering. By her laws, any bonding must occur between divinities on the same level. And she was the only major goddess who had attended the meeting, as she had only called minor goddesses. Also, by her laws, since she got bored of endless meetings to decide anything, all such gatherings, once begun, are closed. No new entries into them, and everything must be decided in a single gathering. So my daughter has decided to test you to see if you are at least worthy of her attention, and since she's in a fury, it might be getting interesting for you soon, Izanagi says, and then I am forcibly materialized. Also, this is all you. You can't use the powers that go with the position of Izanagi no Mikoto, since you're being tested as the major god you truly are. I see, I answer yet again, and then the connection cuts, the air suddenly heating as I am forced to materialize by some outside force. Before me stands a black-haired woman whose skin is shining a brilliant gold, with golden and black fires flickering around her. In one hand, she holds a fan upon which is the image of the rising sun. In the other hand she holds a long katana flickering with fire and lightning, which she raises to the sky. As she does so, thunderclouds gather above. I query Kami's aimishn and find the sword in the armory. The divine weapon Aim no Murakamo no Tsurugi, which summons and controls the lightning, the fury of the heavens. Amaterasu's sword, a weaker replica of which was given into the keeping of mortals, which later had shards of the blade taken by the smiths of Kusagakure, used to make several swords, which bore collectively the name Kusanagi no Tsurugi. One blade that can extend for several miles as the user wills. Another blade that can cut through anything. A third blade that can control the wind. And a fourth blade that can channel lightning. This sword has all those abilities and more. It extends more slowly than Kamishini no Yari, and I can counter or dodge that. The control of wind and lightning, as well as the other elements of the storm, Nejibana can counter. Its ability to cut through anything is solved by the simple plan of don't get hit. The only thing that worries me are the fires of the sun, which Amaterasu can unleash. My protection from fire, endowed by Rikinjaka, is not strong enough to counter those fires without releasing the blade. And I do have a cover to worry about. I select my blades carefully as I summon my armor and weapons, the positions of my chosen blades shifting to set them at my side, so I don't need to reach behind me to grab them, which would remove a hand from use for a moment. We are going to fight, Ichigo Yamamoto, the woman says. She wears a gold and black kimono, images of the rising sun embroidered on the edge, and the constellations are depicted on the rest of the robe. I look over her and approve of what I see. Well muscled, but not obscenely. A warrior who knows her work. She wears a necklace of jewels, but that is her only adornment. Her assets are even larger than Tsunade's, and I wonder if breast size and power levels are somehow connected. Then I dismiss the thought. If you manage to hold your own for 5 minutes, I will accept our bonding as equals, even if you are judged to have lost. If you lose before then, I still must accept the bonding, but I will be your superior, and you will stay far from me. Should you win, I will submit unto you, as the defeated submits to the victor, she explains. And who said I wanted the bonding? I ask, hand falling to one of my blades. I have a cover to maintain, so I am limited in my choices. Personally, I don't really care about the outcome. I didn't want this bonding, I still don't want it, it was decided without my input, and honestly forfeiting sounds like a great option right about now. I have a job to do, and I want to get it done rather than waste time with this, I say, and Amaterasu's jaw plummets. Now, if you don't mind, get out of my way. And did Zelrich suggest the bonding? I ask, deciding to make Zelrich's death painful enough to give Saizel nightmares if he did. That old vampire? No, I despise him, Yamamoto-san. I would do exactly the opposite of whatever he suggested. I knew you had entered this world before he even came to me and had made my decision on the fact that you needed to be bonded to a goddess before he spoke with my father, Amaterasu assures me, and I shelve my plans for Zelrich's death temporarily. I understand why you would worry though. Now, shall we get to the fight? I told you, I'm perfectly content with forfeiting, I say, preparing to force my way past if she persists with this notion. I have a job to do and I can't allow delay in it. I want a good fight before I have to return to the camp, after all. You do not desire me? You do not wish to attempt to force me to name you my superior? Amaterasu asks in apparent shock. Then she finally gets it, I say sarcastically. Correct. I find your appearance pleasant, but I have no desire to force my authority upon others here. I'm chained into helping Izanagi, and that provides me with a support structure I wasn't expecting. Other than that, I have a job to do, and I will do it, then I will leave, and return only when necessary to deal with Izanagi's duties, I reply. Then we shall fight, Amaterasu breathes. I raise my eyes towards the skies, exasperated but still watching her carefully. How many times do I have to say it? I ask, tensing my muscles beneath my armor, prepared to defend myself as necessary. I do not desire to fight you. I have a job to do. I'm about to get into a fight as I do it. So please, make this easier for me and stand aside. No, Ichigo-kun, she says, and lunges, blade raised, fan sweeping across, as if to bisect me at the waist. Bam, I say, and slam my chosen blade from its sheath. Bankai, I say, a pressure wave from my drawing of the blade slamming into Amaterasu, throwing her back. Todoruk, Kakajim Tenjin Mim, I order, the earth shaking, a massive fissure erupting in the earth, forming in a line behind me. An immense black armored hand slams into the ground, coming from the fissure. The arm attached to that hand comes into view, rising above the earth as trees fall into the chasm. We are a mere 10 kilometers from the fortress, and this fight will no doubt be sensed. They'll be ready for me when I come. So be it. A second armored hand slams into the ground, this one equal in size to the other. The second arm appears, the two flex, and then the massive black armored warrior forces himself into the air, his arms propelling him upwards. He lands, the fissure closing the moment he emerges from it, a massive blade at its side. The earth shakes beneath its feet, and the giant glares down at Amaterasu as he draws his blade. I raise my blade, and the giant mirrors me. Tenkin is usable because what this could be viewed as is the creation of a divine avatar. Otherwise, I wouldn't risk it. Impressive, Ichigo-kun, Amaterasu says, and lunges again. The giant's blade is brought in front of me, the tip pointing down as the blade is plunged into the earth, Amaterasu slamming into the blade as I draw a second sword. Bankai, I whisper so my foe can't hear. Icarus, Kamishini no Yari, I say, and the blade of the black giant is withdrawn from the earth, revealing my foe. My second blade extends at full speed, slamming into Amaterasu, punching through the armor she has summoned without trouble, and pierces through her right shoulder, causing her to hiss in pain and almost drop her sword. The blade retracts and extends again, punching through her right hand. This time, the sword falls to the ground, and I shunpo forwards, one foot slamming into Amaterasu's gut, doubling her over and sending her flying, the other stepping on top of the dropped sword. Well played, Amaterasu says, then black fire erupts from her fan with a wave of said item, slamming into me. I grit my teeth, refusing to step back even as the heat burns, my Ryatsu blazing around me as I unseal from my former 2% of power to a full 20%, then continue to unseal, my power climbing to 30%, then 40%, then 50%, as I throw 4 long. In knives far from me, the knives slamming into trees and the tags trailing from them flashing. Deprived of 12th Division support, I figured out a few ways to use Genjutsu myself. A blue dome spreads from where the knives hit the trees, the parts of the dome meeting and forming a spiritual area freeze. My power rises all the way to 100%, forcing the fire back, my robes fortunately astralized still. My armor has had the paint scorched from it and is glowing red. Within it, I am currently snarling in pain, my heated armor and the fire that slipped into the armor burning me. I force my Ryatsu cold, calling upon the latent powers of Hyorin Meru available to me. The ice that freezes the universe ruthlessly overwhelms the flames, frost forming over my skin. I am apparently unprotected from divine fire. As my skin and armor cools, ice begins to form on my plate, sealing the gaps in my plate. With a snarl, I sheath Shinzam and draw a new blade. Do you think fire will get the best of me? I ask. With the skies comes the cold of the highest mountains, which stretch far into the heavens. I can use this blade without fear of breaking my cover, I say. Bankai. My, Juuchi Isamu, I growl out. You started this, but I will end it if you insist, I continue, dismissing Kakajim Tenjin Mim. Amaterasu's wounds were healed while I dealt with the fire, and the combination of Tenkin and Shinzam, which was my intent all along, won't work twice. A snowstorm whips up, Amaterasu's flames refusing to continue burning as cold pervades the area. I slip into the snowstorm, entirely silent. Amaterasu's blade reappears in her hand, and suddenly her power grows, her flames burning once more. Evidently she needs the blade to be at full strength. "Well, I haven't fought in the snow for a while," Amaterasu says, apparently pleased. "Shall we dance?" I ask, my voice containing the cold, distant music of winter within it, resounding through every syllable. I begin the deadly dance, summoning a mightier technique. "Roku no Mai, Shirashi," I say, and from the ground an immense mountain of ice erupts, covered swiftly in snow. 6 Dance, White Death, then, the mountain, which I now stand at the peak of, Amaterasu a burning dot at the base, constrained within thick walls of ice, seems to shrug off its burden of snow. An immense avalanche roars down the slope, Amaterasu trapped into facing it. The avalanche seems to have its front form into wolves and sharks made from ice, eager to sink their teeth into the foe. Amaterasu raises her sword and brings it down, a tsunami of black fire rushing from it. The avalanche meets the tsunami, and the avalanche wins, but is reduced significantly. It crashes into Amaterasu, but it is not the finishing blow it was meant to be. Amaterasu appears behind me and slashes into my left shoulder, rendering that arm useless. I roar and turn on my foot, the sword in my hand sweeping across Amaterasu, cutting shallowly across her chest as she leaps back. I freeze my useless arm into immobility and leap back myself as lightning roars down from the snowstorm, targeting me. More strikes follow, and I dance away from them, eventually just raising a dome of ice to protect myself. "You are certainly more agile than your size suggests," Amaterasu says. My eyes are sparking, mist rising from the sockets as lightning crackles in tiny arcs over them. I feel one of the noble phantasms that is permanently attached to my being, spoils of war, activate. Not all I used as a servant became a noble phantasm. Some noble phantasms simply retook their original forms when I left that world. But some traits became noble phantasms, and remain so. Another tsunami of black fire sweeps towards me, and I know agony, my armor fusing to my skin in places from the heat. I roar in pain, ice melting under me, my footing slipping, a crevasse forming beneath me, which Uchiha Samu falls into, and I do the only thing I can do. I rip my helm from my head before it melts and charge. I howl my pain and hate to the skies, and when I bring my soul-functioning hand forward, it is wrapped in the psychic lightning wielded by Magnus and his sorcerers, by the rune priests of Bjorn's army. Spoils of war. Curse of the Psyker, I exult, naming my trophy and bringing the noble phantasm fully online. I see my reflection in a pane of ice. My eyes are pits of witch fire, mist rising from them with lightning crackling over my scorched plate, the skin of my face scorched, cracked and bleeding, long fangs protruding from my upper lip. I am not giving up, though. This will end in my victory. Amaterasu is straightening from the punch I delivered, and I leap at her, attempting to rip out her throat, the two of us tumbling as I wrestle with her, trying to force my head down so my fangs can tear her throat open. I am physically stronger, even with one arm useless, and in this close range, her weapons cannot be maneuvered. We roll into a crevasse and fall, with me slamming down first as Amaterasu rolls, attempting to get me to let go. The ice cracks beneath me, and I howl in agony as my burns have still hot armor forced against them. But I am not done. Instinctually I drag Amaterasu down in the heartbeat before she lands herself, her body slamming into mine, her arms flung out forcibly and snapping like twigs as they hit the ice. Her sword and fan skitter away, and she tears herself from my grasp, flinging herself from me. I force myself to my feet, ignoring the fire she flings at me. I will not fall. "Old warrior," I hear someone try to command. "You have won," they say, and I dismiss their words. Victory isn't won until the enemy is dead. The fury of the Kenpachi is upon me. My vision narrows. I see only my foe. A red mist obscures the rest. I howl and prepare to lunge, intending to kill her before succumbing to my own wounds and falling into slumber. "Ichigo, stop." I hear someone call. "Kiss him," I think. It does not matter. I will not stop. "You have triumphed, Ichigo-kun," my foe says. An attempt at deception. I will stain the ice red for that. I am in pain. I am enraged. My curse has hold of me, and I must kill something. Two people seize me, grasping my arms a heartbeat before I lunge. "Hold him," one, the first speaker of the two new arrivals grunts as I thrash, seeking to end my fight. "I'm trying, Susanoo. He's berserk, and he is by far stronger than me. It's only because we have leverage and are working together that there's any hope at all." Kisum says. I recognize him now and roar in fury at this treachery. Why is he stopping me from ending my fight? Is he trying to let my foe kill me? I start thrashing harder. "Ichigo, return to yourself," I hear a voice say in my mind. A white sword, an adachi, is at my feet. A long white ribbon extends from the pommel. Juuchi Isamu. My sword. I lunge for it, dragging my captors with me. My teeth clench on the blade, my arms immobilized. The moment I grab it in my teeth, winter's cold fury roars into me, mixing with my own rage, making it grow. Oh no, Kisum says, and I tear myself from the grasp of my captors, focused entirely on my enemy. You have won, Ichigo, my foe says. I submit, she continues, baring her throat. Submit. A possibility occurs to me, floating within my rage. A battle for dominance, then. Do males and females battle for dominance? Thoughts start rising through the haze of agony and pain, confusion stopping me temporarily. No, do not try to stop him again, brother, Hoshigaki-san. He is realizing that this was a battle for dominance. If you try to seize him, his current confusion about the battle will fade, and it will be once more a fight for survival, so far as he is concerned. He is a cornered beast right now, and I am in no condition to defend myself in time to prevent him from ripping me apart. Peace, Ichigo. You have won. You are superior. Let the rage fade, my enemy says. No, Amaterasu says. I remember her name, reason starting to return as things clarify themselves for me. Trust my sister, mortal. He is coming, Susanoo says. I turn and face him, seeing before me a warrior in full plate, an empty sheath by his side. His helm is off, revealing long black hair, hanging freely behind him, a serious expression upon his face, dark eyes intent on me. He had better be. I don't want those fangs going for my throat, Kisum says. I rise to my full height, reason almost back. I seal Juuchi Isamu and sheathe the blade, beginning an evaluation of my wounds. My skill with medical kaidam is pretty much non-existent, and my high-speed regeneration appears to be suppressed. This will set the mission back, and I mentally curse Amaterasu. I cannot afford these wounds right now, I have a job to do. I'll do it even with them, but it will make it harder. They won't unless you try something like you did with Shisum a second time, Kisum, I say. In which case, you'll find them at your throat, clear? I ask, and he nods. My armor is going to need to be cut off of me. It's fused to my skin, I say. My apologies, Ichigo-kun. I did not anticipate such a thing happening, Amaterasu says. She has gotten her fan back, and black fire runs up one of her arms, vanishing an instant later and leaving the arm perfectly fine. She picks up her sword, and the same thing happens. May I heal you and repair your armor? She asks. I am low on Riatsu from forcibly dousing the flames and keeping them from incinerating me in the first place, and I am not in a trusting mood. No. I'll cut my armor off and deal with my injuries myself, I say, drawing Senbonsakura from my side. I reinforce it with what Riatsu I have left and begin the task, cutting away the armor that fused to the upper half of my left leg. My skin comes away with a piece of armor I cut away, and the flesh beneath is scorched as well, the smell of burned flesh filling the air, blood beginning to seep out from the burned flesh, the wound reopened after it had been cauterized by scorching hot armor. I grit my teeth and continue. Ichigo-kun, please, Amaterasu says. Allow me to heal your wounds, she applies to my trust in others once more. Do not be a fool, warrior, Susanoo says. Your injuries are grievous, and they may be healed in an instant by my sister. Healing is not one of the divine abilities you possess, and the divine flames prevent your usual high-speed regeneration. Let her heal you. No, I snarl, cutting away the next piece of armor, this the top of my left gauntlet. The bone is revealed as the armor comes away, scorched black and cracked. Amaterasu steps forward. I cannot watch the one I am bonded to, however unwillingly on his part, suffer when I may salve his wounds, she says, golden fire collecting in her hands, blade and fan sheathed at her side. Then go somewhere else, I growl, beginning to hack away the right half of my breastplate. My Zanpakuto are silent for the most part, holding a stony solidarity with me, their spirits enraged by the wounds I took in this battle, and firmly untrusting of her fires. Ichigo, she can help you, Kisum says, trying to stay my hand as I cut away my armor. I do not trust her flames, I growl back, shaking off his hand and making the final cut. As I begin to peel away my armor, ripping away skin, Amaterasu's hand settles on my face, wreathed in golden fire. I try and smack it away, but her other hand catches mine, and I am unable to stop her flames. I resign myself to her finishing the job and prepare for death by burning alive. Golden flame envelops me, scorching what of me is still unharmed, and I howl in agony. This will not be an easy death, I realize, and I clench my teeth, determined not to give Amaterasu the satisfaction of my pain. The fires dance over my wounds, every inch of me wrapped by the fires of the sun. Endure just a moment longer, Ichigo-kun, Amaterasu whispers. I feel your pain as if it is my own, our bond grants us that. The pain will pass in a moment, she says. I know you now. Your will is indeed a fearsome thing, granting you power beyond any other, endurance beyond any other. Just endure a moment longer, she says, and then the pain passes, replaced by a refreshing cool feeling on my skin, my blood ceasing to flow from where I sliced away my armor. My wounds start to cease their complaints, and it becomes easier to remain conscious, the pain slowly retreating from my thoughts. My burns heal, slowly at first, then more quickly. My high-speed regeneration starts to activate again, drawing upon my Reiatsu, which I do not have defeated, trying to heal the internal organs damaged by the fall, and the fires that burn through my skin, and I growl as my own regeneration starts to kill me, powering itself, drawing the Riryoku I need to remain alive. What is happening? What hurts? Amaterasu asks. Regeneration killing me, I groan. What? Susanoo asks. Regeneration doesn't do that, he says almost indignantly. It could. It's a priority thing for his body, and regeneration uses a lot of power. Izanagi's power is sealed off from him at the moment, right? Kisame asks, and I see Susanoo nod as my vision starts to fade, going black as death approaches. If his reserves are exhausted, his regeneration is more likely to kill him than anything else is. It's drawing on his life force, Kisame explains. No. Amaterasu replies, fervor in her voice. I feel power flooding into my reserves, or trying to. It is incompatible with my own. Divine power of a god whose concept of existence is foreign to my own. I can't use it to power my regeneration. I don't have enough to activate Shikai and thus make my reserves available. My Zanpakuto are unable to reach to their blades and activate their unsealed state as I die. Even Muramasa cannot do so. I have too little power for the connection of spirit and blade to activate. I believe this is my department, a voice says. Yamamoto Saudich noticed his great-grandson was fighting and near to dying, and took advantage of the ability to travel into any point in time of this world, at least up to the furthest point in its progression, to send me here roughly an hour ago. I am Retsu Anohana, captain of the 4th Division, and in charge of healers. You have grievously injured his spiritual being, and I will need to concentrate, the newcomer says as green light fills what remains of my vision. The demands of my regeneration start to lower, Reiatsu starting to refill my reserves. First, I must restore his power. Unlike him, I can use Kidm to convert your power to something he can use, Amaterasu-san. The Saudich will be very pleased to see you again, I think. He had been hoping Ichigo and you would get acquainted. He is also hoping for some half-Shinigami children to come of this mission, Anohana says. My vision begins to return. You were lucky I arrived while he could still be saved. His regeneration is a vastly demanding thing, far out of proportion to how far he has unsealed. It can heal more than any other's regeneration, but in trait it takes nearly 5 times the power to do so, the demand increasing. Normally, with his truly immense reserves, he barely even notices the drain. But your fires are not easy to resist, and drained his power to barely nothing, his seals reactivating at the worst possible time for him, she comments. Thank you, Amaterasu says. I have seen his very soul through our bond, and how could I not desire him after seeing his truest being? I understand fully. He is indeed a fine warrior, a guardian of his division and the Sirte. Honorable, stubborn, and with a will that does not allow him to do anything except win, no matter what. You nearly killed him, but he will recover, in time, Anohana replies. You said you can convert my power to something he can use. Amaterasu asks, a note of what might be anxiety in her tone. I decide I imagined it. Indeed. The lightning strikes the earth and becomes water. Water becomes fire, and fire becomes air. By my will, let the wheel of the cycle turn, let change be brought, let power flow true, Anohana chants, and Amaterasu's power floods my reserves again, this time adapting. The fires of the sun become the steel of blades and the cold earth of death. He is cold, Amaterasu says. He is death, Anohana explains. The chill of the grave is a part of him. With time though, and exposure to the warmth of the sun, he will become warmer. At least in your presence. Outside of your presence, who knows? I have work to do, I say, trying to sit up. Stay down, Ichigo-san, Anohana says. I will be staying with you for the rest of your mission. I will need to know your cover, but I am not going to allow you to work right now. We can do that later, she says. His reserves are immense and nearly drained. I will offer power as well, Susanoo says, and I am struck by the storm suddenly, waves and lightning filling my soul, my reserves filling even further. I see who you are now, Ichigo Yamamoto. Look after him, sister. He will need someone to keep him from dying, he says, and then I finally slip into slumber, too exhausted from my previous power expenditure, my near death, and my healing to keep awake even with refilled reserves. I wake several hours later, in a clearing inside of Kiri's forests, not far from where I fought Amaterasu. Anohana and Amaterasu are sitting by the bedroll I am lying on, a fire going near me. There are no tents set up yet, and Susanoo is gone, nowhere within my sensory range. My armor, restored, hangs from a nearby tree, as does the modified Onmitsukan uniform I wear, patterned after soifons and borrowing elements from Hokage's. Toughened, Ryatsu reinforced leather that was burned away by Amaterasu's flames. My robes hang there as well, my Haori altered and hanging beside my blades. It now has the kanji of my division in shining gold instead of black, has jewels decorating it, creating images of the constellations, and has had a rising sun woven beneath my division's number. Who defaced my Haori? I ask, sitting up. Ichigo-kun. Amaterasu says. You're awake. How are you feeling? Are you thirsty? Hungry? Do any of your wounds still hurt? Do your reserves remain low? She asks, and my eyes turn to Unohana, who is looking at me. She has been somewhat anxious. She saw who you are in truth, the essence of your being, and that was apparently enough to make her affection for you secure, Unohana explains. I am a Shinigami captain and heir to Tsurute's greatest noble house. I have about as much time for romance as I have for lying around doing nothing, in other words none, I growl, determinedly rising to my feet. My pants are still on, I find, or rather new ones have been put on, and the bandages usually wrapped around my torso are there once more, though these are new ones, a fresh white. Now, who defaced my Haori? I ask again, stalking over and getting my uniform on, then getting my armor down so I can don it. Ichigo-san, is your work really so important that you must immediately go into battle with freshly filled reserves, newly healed wounds, and a major goddess left worrying about your well-being? Unohana asks gently. Yes. I have a war to kick off, and my work will not wait. Where is Yiru? I ask, kneeling and beginning to armor my legs, building my armor around me from the ground up. And for the third time, who defaced my Haori? I demand. Yiru is with Chisum, back at camp, Kisum answers, walking into the small camp through a kitten barrier, apparently shielding the camp from detection. It's roughly 6 at night right now, and why are you so irritated about your Haori? The Haori of a captain is the symbol of their authority, of their pride as one entrusted with the leadership of a division. To see it altered so, defaced in such manner, is intolerable, I growl, replying with fire in my tone. It defaces the pride of the division. No need to bite my head off, Kisum says, backing away. I altered it, Ichigo-kun, or rather redesigned it, and had Amaterasu-san do it for me, Unohana says, and as I finish donning the armor for my legs, I rise and turn slowly to her. You suggested this? I ask in disbelief. You know the pride of a captain, what a Haori means. I shout, my temper building. And you so casually deface my division's pride? I ask, hoping I misheard. I haven't apparently, since Unohana nods. I felt it was appropriate considering your new bond, she says. My division's wounded pride cries for retribution. My division's honor demands satisfaction. As is my right under the law, I demand blood in answer for this insult, Unohana Tachem, I say, stating the ritual formula of a challenge to a duel. It is your right if sustained by the Saudachem, but it must be had once we return home, Ichigo-san. For now, formal orders override that, Unohana replies. I won't forget, I growl. It seems such a minor thing, Amaterasu says in confusion. A mere alteration of it. I did little enough. But it is sufficient for you to have lawful right to demand retribution from the one who designed the alteration. It is, I answer. A captain's Haori is their pride as a division leader. It is their symbol of authority. A captain may alter their own, but for another to do so without permission is held as insult, as trampling on that captain's pride. Had I been asked, I would have approved the alteration. But since I wasn't, I have every right to call for a duel to satisfy my division's honor and pride, as well as my own. I see, Kisum comments. Do you? I ask, and he nods. I think I do, at least. Let me make sure. You plan to fight either until you've killed her or shed enough blood to satisfy you, likely the latter considering what she told me, of how things are currently going for you, over an alteration to your coat that you would have approved if asked, but since you weren't asked, you are planning that fight, correct? Kisum asks. Correct. Amaterasu, if you remove the alterations now, I'll grant permission and you can restore them. Just include a wolf and a shark in gray bordering the rising sun. The insult from Unohana will remain valid, but it lets you off the hook for making the alterations in the first place, I say, and Amaterasu closes her eyes. A moment later, my Haori is back to how it originally was. Oh, and leave the division number black, I say. You have my permission to alter my Haori. Thank you Ichigo, Amaterasu says. My Haori takes on the specified appearance, and I nod, satisfied. Okay, sounds like a better reason to pick a fight than some I've heard, Kisum says. I've seen people start fights because they didn't like the other person's accent, so honestly your pride is a pretty good reason, he finally decides. Correct. Now, I have a fortress to attack, I say. My plan is astralize, walk in, materialize, kill everything there with Senbonza Kurikageashi, destroy the fortress with Kidden, return to camp. About as complicated as I have the patience for right now, I tell the group. Sounds reasonable. Well thought out, no really complicated stuff to go wrong, and it has the benefit of being direct. See you when you're done, Kisum says, and I nod, beginning to cover my arms in my plate, now that my legs and torso are covered. I'll try not to take too long, I say, securing the joints together, armor satisfyingly strong, the feeling of once more being in my safe shell, able to meet anything in combat and kill it starting to return to me. If I'm not back to the camp by 10, don't wait up for me. I likely decided to astralize and catch some sleep in the ruins of the fortress, I tell Kisum calmly. Got it. See you, Kisum says as I seal the last joint on my armor. Ichigo-san, you really should eat first, you know, Unohana says. I ignore her, sliding my gauntlets on and securing them, then slipping my robes and Haori on. I grab my helm once they are securely on, and secure my helm. Ichigo-kun, should we not share a meal before you go to war, now that the bond is secure between us, forged by divine power? Amaterasu asks. I reach into the depths of my soul and actually find connections to her and Izanami similar to the connections I have with my Zanpakuto. Utterly binding. Inescapable. Making it impossible for us to part for long. I can probably expect Izanami to accompany the Konoha military when they come, given how strong this bond is. It lets us see the other souls, feel and alleviate their pain, hear their thoughts, and a few other interesting things such as feel emotions. I give in when I feel Amaterasu's hope that I will do so. Fine. I suppose a little food won't hurt anyways, I say, and Amaterasu favors me with a smile as I remove my helm and kneel. A meal appears a moment later, 4 plates with steaks and rice on them, both freshly made and warmed from the smell, is at the ready for us. I eat my meal, avoiding any but the most perfunctory of conversation with Unohana, regaling Amaterasu and Kisum with tales of battles from both this life and when I was Keian, and they listen in fascination as I describe the larger fights, where armies clashed. Good luck, Ichigo-kun, Amaterasu says, rising as I finish my meal. Thank you, I say, and astralize, entering the fortress, and it turns out to be my lucky day. 2 of the 7 swordsmen, both loyalists, are here. Jinpachi and Kushimaru. The sword Shibuki and Nabari. This will be fun. Well, my lucky day, I say, then begin my version of Ikaku's lucky dance, consisting of me drawing Mizukimaru, entering Shikai, roaring a wordless challenge, and lunging for the foe with a shout of lucky. Announcing my attack. Jinpachi gets his sword out in time to block me, meeting me with the cutting edge, then swinging the edge with the explosive tags into me. As the smoke clears from the explosion, I am revealed, helm off and grinning, in the reflection of me on Jinpachi's sword. What? Jinpachi asks. Nice try, I say. But a little light on the firepower, so try harder, I continue, bringing Mizukimaru sweeping down and slashing into the arm not using his sword, severing tendons and rendering the arm useless. Kill him. Some nameless Jimnin shouts. I treat his call with the contempt it deserves, absent-mindedly stretching my left hand in his direction, a Byakurai burning through his chest. Next, please, I call, and a sword pierces through me, then again, sewing my left arm to my side. Or trying to at least. Again, nice try, I say, ripping my arm from the wire binding it and backhanding Kushimaru into a wall. Try harder, I say, and they do. Suiton. Surikten no Jutsu. Jinpachi calls, an immense dragon of water roaring from a nearby pond on a training field. I grin and leap to meet his lunge, Hazukimaru's blade slamming into his sword's cutting edge, a blast wave of air exploding from the meeting. Now that's more like it, I say with satisfaction, then the dragon slams into me, and I am knocked into a pond. As I rise, I see the swordsman, a dragon summons, and an immense humanoid construct of molten rock facing me, along with several hundred opponents of varying types. Yes, today is my lucky day, I say, and lunge. Tsukero, Mizukimaru, I say, and the spear splits apart and extends, the blade piercing the dragon's heart. It vanishes in a puff of smoke, and I snuff out a flare of disappointment. The Bari comes at me again, and I reconnect the spear, spinning it and knocking the weapon aside, grabbing its wielder, and throwing him into a mob of common soldiers rushing towards their death in me, not that the two are different. I almost casually butcher the first few hundred who face me, inexperienced fighters and those who can't use chakra, using the experience as a warm-up. Eventually, after a couple hours, the first hour being devoted to the warm-up and the second being devoted to dealing with the mid-level warriors, I'm left with maybe 100 opponents, all ninja. The monk surrendered, and the samurai rushed in and died with those warriors who didn't have access to chakra. You're tired now, Kushimaru says. Prepare to die. Yeah. Everyone else I've killed said that as well. They're dead. What makes you think you'll be any different? I ask Kushimaru, curious. I've unsealed to 10% as my reserves fell, so I have power aplenty still available. You're a bloodline freak, clearly, given your healing. I am a loyal swordsman of the mist. I am superior to you by that fact alone, he says, and I tire of his blather. Lucky. I shout and lunge, skewering 3 enemies as Mizukimaru extends with the force of my lunge behind it, the blade rattling forward on its chain. 3 elite soldiers, now 3 elite meat shields, as Kushimaru jumps back. Okay, let's get this over with. Bankai, Rickman Mizukimaru, I say, the immense blades revealed a moment later as they slice apart the tornado of power that engulfed me upon the command of Bankai. I lunge, now getting down to business. Shibuki meets Guandao, Shibuki loses. The sword flies from its wielder's hand, the monk's bait decapitating Jinpachi. Several shinobi send water dragons rocketing at me, and I slam a blade into the dragons, causing them to explode harmlessly. I charge the attackers, accepting Nabari stabbing through me multiple times in exchange, attempting to sew my limbs together. My blade swing, stretching the wire ties binding my arms, chopping my other attackers in two. Several more idiots charge me with swords, and I glance at Hazukimaru's dragon crests on all 3 blades. Full. I slam the Guandao into the ground and cause a fissure to open, the charging swordsman falling screaming into the earth. I already. Kushimaru howls from behind me, and I deflect his lunge from my heart with the axe blade. Sorry, not happening, I say, seeing the remaining shinobi beside Kushimaru working as one, obviously hoping he'll distract me. The water dragons start to form from multiple pawns, having 9 heads and being bigger than any other I've seen so far. It roars. I am unimpressed, sadly. Seriously, another one? After all your previous water dragons failed. Are you one-trick ponies or something? I ask. Whatever. Hadme 88, Hirikjekizoku Shinton Rame, I say in a bored tone, and the pillar of lightning destroys dragon and shinobi, blasting apart what little of the fortress walls survived my earlier kid usage, while slaughtering the faceless minions of Yagura-sama, TM. Run back to Yagura, tell him to surrender to the bloodline rebellion, I tell Kushimaru, then turn and hit him with the flat of my monk spade, sending him flying. He lands in the river that supplied the fortress with water, and howls curses as I seal Mizukimaru, sheathe the blade, and astralize. One good fight and one decent fight today, though the second was only decent because there were a lot of opponents who actually managed to win me and wear me down a bit. Not a bad day, all told, I decide as I begin my return to camp. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the AEthereal Devastation for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.